Welcome to Refused Flank, a wargaming podcast exploring the intersection of competitive excellence and narrative storytelling potential.
Welcome to Refused Flank. We are on the second week of the 4th edition Space Marine Codex review. I am Grant.
And I'm Cam.
And we're going to just kind of jump right in, waste no time. So check out last week if you want to listen to our opinions on the lore and just the book in general. So moving right along, the Army special rules. The first one is, and they shall know no fear. This is detailed actually in the core rule book, which I thought was an interesting choice because it's pretty much a specific
Space Marines,
Army rule, but there are so many Space Marine armies that I guess it just made sense to put it right in the main rule book.
It feels like they could have reprinted it here for convenience sake, but...
Yeah, it's essentially they always regroup, and if they are caught in a sweeping advance, they act as if they're like fearless, but they can take those extra attacks for being outnumbered or whatever, those extra hits.
Yeah, and always regroup means two things. One, they auto regroup. They don't have to test for it, and then they can move afterwards, which is not normal for regrouping. And then it also means that they can still regroup when they're below 50%, which I think is a really punishing thing in 4th edition.
It's
is
terribly
that if
punishing.
your guys are below 50% and they're fleeing, they're just never going to regroup. So I think that's huge, the fact that they can regroup under 50%, that it happens automatically, and that they can just bounce back and move again right away. So very flexible, especially for how hard-hitting these guys are in general. It's like, I finally got them to run away, and then, I didn't. They're back.
For sure, yeah. I feel like that hits. Chaos is always sad because they don't have that. Now, they usually have a better leadership stat, but man, when they do flee and you're below 50, it's just like, well, there goes that squad. They're never coming back.
I did misspeak there just a little bit. They can try to regroup below 50%. So it's auto if they're above, and then they're allowed to test.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know if we've done that right in the past, but that sounds more like what we've done. Okay, never mind. But still.
Because normally you can't even test.
Right, normally you're
done.
just screwed. Yeah. So, which is, again, that's every army that isn't this book. Black Templars, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, I think, are all of them. Hopefully I'm not missing them all.
Yeah, so they all get that. They shall know no fear.
Yes, and then there is a specific call-out for Space Marine characters, which is kind of interesting. To vaguely summarize, it says that commanders, librarians, and chaplains can be used in one of three ways. The first is to operate independently, as normal. Okay, I don't know why that's a special rule. But
well, I think some can't. So, for example, in the Imperial Guard Codex, you can't take a commander that's not part of a command squad. So I think that's just maybe helping clarify that like they don't have to have a retinue or squad with them. I don't know. Yeah.
Sure. And then the second way is you can lead a command squad. The character and the unit are a single HQ choice. I do like that they clarify that because I think the slots sometimes cause
the way it's
confusion.
Listed in the Army list in a few pages here could be confusing. So helpful that it's clarified.
So you can have your character and a squad for them, and it's one HQ choice. It's not like both and you're done.
And you don't take a command squad by itself.
Correct.
This is the only way to get a command squad is if it's going to be led by one of these HQ choices.
And then third, a librarian or chaplain can be attached to a different character's command squad, but only one character of a given type may be attached to a single command squad. The attached character, the squad, and the character leading it are a single HQ choice. I read that verbatim. So essentially, these characters join into squads effectively. You can't have more than one captain or chapter master in a squad, which just kind of makes sense to me. And the librarians and chaplains are more supporting HQ choices that can then join in. And again, all one slot. So if you want to kind of Death Star it, you could like have one big squad with like 3 characters in it.
Yeah.
And a bunch of guys.
But
all
it saves
for one
on slots. Yeah. So that's nice. And then you could take a second command squad
have
with
another
else
one.
or so it's anytime you find a way that you can save on slots, it's often nice.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably good that they clarified some of that stuff. And then finally, I find it interesting that they put this here and not under like special rules just for the drop pod itself, but we have drop pod assault. And it basically goes on to explain that drop pods are frequently used by Space Marine armies in their operations. They drop out of the sky right into the thick of combat, which kind of makes sense given their lore is more of a strike force versus like a, million-man strong army. And essentially any command squad, vet squad, Terminator squad, dreadnought, Scout Squad, Tac Squad, or Devastator Squad can take a drop pod basically as a dedicated transport. And drop pods basically allow you to deep strike in, even if your unit normally could not. So typical way that comes in, you have to roll for reserves and everything.
Yeah, and for standard missions that wouldn't normally allow you to do it.
Good to point that out too. And essentially, the big benefit of drop pods is you can't like mishap effectively. I don't know if they used the word mishap in 4th edition.
Right, but if they would hit something that would cause a problem, you just move it until it doesn't.
Correctly,
so.
Correct.
Huge.
So that just means you're gonna not lose guys accidentally.
Deep striking is so scary in this edition,
and
so
that just removes that.
Yeah.
So honestly, if you have, for example, a threatening close combat squad, oftentimes, if they're in a drop pod, I think the best thing to do is to drop the drop pod on top of the squad you want to be close to, because even if you direct hit, you're just going to move the minimum distance over with no penalty, and then you might pop out like 1 inch from them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To guarantee that you'll be within 12 next turn, unless they got some weird movement shenanigans. You know what I mean? So you can do stuff like that to give it. And drop pods are pretty cheap, which we'll get into, I guess, when we discuss dedicated transports. But that's something very unique to Space Marines.
Yep, and so they just clarify here that that's how it works for the whole army.
Yep.
All told. And I think it kind of makes sense because, yeah.
I think it's cool because it provides a different way to build the army in that one whole rule, because you could, just deploy everybody, infantry, and maybe some normal vehicles, tanks, like normal, or you could just have a massive reserve force with a piecemeal force on the board to start, and then everybody just kind of airdrops in, which is very thematic.
But also could really screw you over, as we've talked about before in 4th edition, because you could just get bad reserve rolls, and they just never show up or show up way late.
I'm not sure if there's bonuses to reserve rolls somewhere in here.
I don't remember seeing it, so maybe there's a special character or something.
There's definitely teleport homers and stuff like that will help Terminators, but yeah, I don't remember anything.
But that just helps them land on target. That doesn't even
correct. That
help
doesn't
them
help
ensure
with,
they come in.
Correct. So yeah, no, definitely up to the luck of the dice. After that, we can go into the librarian psychic powers, or do you want to talk about anything in the war gear?
Well, yeah, let's just at least mention there is the whole armory here. There's different ways to get access to it. Generally, it's going to be characters that are going to have access to that. You can upgrade your sergeants to give them access via Terminator armor or Terminator honors, and that's something we wanted to mention briefly because there's potentially confusion between Terminator honors and Terminator armor and armory access.
Yeah,
because those three things can all be combined, but they're not necessarily always combined.
Right.
So Terminator honors are simply something bestowed upon a Space Marine who is a really capable warrior. And that's represented by the fact that their leadership goes up and they get 1 more attack.
Yep.
So they go to leadership 9, get +1 attack. Typically, that's going to make them 2 attacks.
And you can have units or models with Terminator honors that do not have Terminator armor or war gear access, as you were saying.
Exactly.
So just clear,
Yeah, and that's pretty common with if you're upgrading a TAC Marine Sergeant to have Terminator honors, he's not getting Terminator armor, and he can't get Terminator armor.
Correct.
By doing that. So, yeah, that's helpful to know. It's its own separate thing. That being said, you can't wear Terminator armor without Terminator honors.
Correct.
So every Terminator in a Terminator squad has Terminator honors by default, and they are also by default wearing Terminator armor. So those things are true. And then some people who have Terminator honors and or Terminator armor can also access the armory and buy other war gear.
And characters and stuff who just start with that ability. And then you could, I think, also buy honors for them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of weedy, but we've seen confusion with that. So
yeah, I think it's worth pointing out. Just even the way the words are, there's a lot of overlap in terminology there.
Yeah.
And then some armory access is only available to people in, or is only... Sorry, let me say this a different way. Terminators can only access... People in Terminator armor can only access certain war gear items that have a little T next to them.
Correct.
So you can't just give them anything.
Yeah.
There's only some things that you can give them.
Which makes sense because it's a whole different weapon platform.
Yeah, you're basically a mini dreadnought, hence its alternative name, Tactical Dreadnought Armor.
Way cooler.
Totally agree.
I don't know.
They're both cool.
Terminator's pretty cool. Darn it. They're both cool. Okay.
But yeah, let's move on. We've got then the Librarian Psychic Powers. So there are 6 available. You just get Storm of the Emperor's Wrath by default at no cost, but then you can replace it at a cost for one of the other 5. Or if you take the leveled up version, more expensive Librarian, the Epistolary, then you can buy a second one for the cost listed. So you could potentially have two, which you could do any combo of the two, is my understanding. So you could pay the lesser points to replace Storm of the Emperor's Wrath, and then pay the more points to get a second one. That's not that as well. If you
that's kind of how I read that as well.
Any standouts for you?
For me, I actually think Storm of the Emperor's Wrath is really good. It's let down by its short range. I guess to explain that, it is a shooting attack. So you do a psychic test, and the librarians, I think, are all... I'm going to double check before I speak. Oh, they're not both leadership 10. So they're either 9 or 10. So you do a psychic test. You got to roll equal to or under your leadership. Otherwise, you perils. And effectively, you get a 12-inch range strength. Do
you perils if you fail? I thought you can just fail if you get doubles.
I guess you fail the attack while you look up if you peril. But it's 12-inch range, strength 4, AP 2 though. AP 2.
Yeah, which is huge.
Assault 1 blast, so you can charge after it.
Really cool.
So I've seen a player, that same guy we mentioned last week, who does Emperor's Wraiths with his custom chapter. I've seen him bring a kitted out like librarian lord with this ability, and he'll run them out, and he'll blast this power, and then he's got a force weapon, which is terrifying power weapon, which we'll get into. Where I guess I'll just explain it now, but it's basically a melee weapon. It's like a power weapon, and if he wounds you, he takes a leadership test, and if he passes it, you just die.
Yeah.
So he can like hurt a Carnifex. I think is always the main big example. Once take a leadership check, and then it just dies.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's quite potent against things with multiple wounds.
Yeah.
So
just looked it up. Perils of the Warp happens on a 2 or a 12, so double 1 or double 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Either too much or not enough, I guess.
But yeah, that one really stands out to me.
Yeah, it's your classic Force Lightning kind of thing. I also very powerful.
Might of Heroes, because I think low key the librarian is a melee character. I think he's a melee character disguised by lore to make you think he's not. But the force weapon is so scary, and things like Might of Heroes and then Veil of Time, I think, can turn him into a scarier beat stick than any other.
Absolutely. Veil of
Space
Time
Marine
is
character.
Especially nice. So for only an additional 10 points, you can get reroll basically everything. So reroll hits, reroll wounds, reroll armor saves, reroll invuln saves, leadership tests, morale checks.
Yeah.
Everything's rerollable for a whole turn when you get that off. So pretty awesome.
I do want to note, too, Might of Heroes is basically plus D3 attacks in an assault phase. He can put that on himself, but it also lets him choose one other model in the same unit as himself.
It says or anyone.
Right. Or sorry, I meant
Okay.
he could pick a different guy, is I guess what I'm getting at. Maybe I used the wrong
I got you now.
Conjunction there. But I could see that in a squad, maybe where you've got a sergeant with a power fist.
That'd be cool.
Because he's probably not rocking around with strength 8 if he's using the force weapon. He's only strength 4, which has its weaknesses at times because you're not always wounding all the time. It might just be better to give D3 attacks to a fist sergeant. So now on the charge, that guy might have 2 attack space, 3 on the charge. Maybe he had a bolt pistol too. So you could have a sergeant with like 6 or 7 power fist attacks.
And it's a little harder to specifically kill that guy since he's part of the squad, whereas the librarian's an independent character in a combat, and so attacks do go directly at him specifically.
Yeah.
Vortex of Doom I think is also worth pointing out just because it's hilarious.
Is that
because it can,
that one? Yeah.
It can blow up your own guy too, but you essentially create a warp rift. Which we talked about this. The Eldar have a similar thing they can do with their weapons.
This is like a fantasy spell. I just want to say that.
It does
That's
feel
what
that
it makes
way,
me feel like.
The orcs have the gun that opens a rift to the warp. So everybody likes opening rifts to the warp, but this is the way that the Space Marines can do it. And you use a small blast marker and put it over an enemy unit. And people, if they fail an initiative test, which is rolling equal to or under their initiative, if they fail that, then they just die, I think.
Yeah, they just die.
Yeah.
They get sucked
into the warp. It doesn't work on monstrous creatures or vehicles because they're too big.
Thank goodness.
Their mass outweighs the pull of the warp, I guess. And then, 6 always fail. It does have the partial models are only affected on a 4+ under the template, so being a small blast template,
right?
Potentially not as bad. But, I mean, if I think about densely packed grots or orcs, like I sometimes have, that could be a lot because they have really bad initiative.
They have bad initiative. There's a lot of them. Yeah, there's certainly some like horde armies that are pretty scared of that.
But if you fail this on a 12, you'll get Perils of the Warp. If you survive the Perils of the Warp, then you have to put the Vortex of Doom centered on the Librarian. So he could potentially suck his own squad into the Warp.
I think he's got pretty good initiative, but you always fail on a 6. So even if he lives the Perils, which he usually should, I'm pretty sure, he could just die. So
and people standing around him.
And people around him. But yeah, no, they're all pretty cool. I think he's a fun option. These are all kind of different powers than I would expect him. If I was just going in blind and I wanted to have like a random shooty librarian, I think Fury of the Ancients I want to call out specifically.
That one's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Well, just because it's the only one that has like infinite range. So if you want him to be able to reach out and touch someone without giving him a weapon or a gun or something, although frankly it might just be better to give him the Stormbolter, who knows. But if you don't want to do that, this is the way, because he just picks a point somewhere on the table and anything.
Table edge.
A table edge, sorry. So he just like shoots off somewhere, it doesn't matter, and they just take hits. So I think that's pretty cool.
Are forced to take him a pinning check, which could be devastating. It could stop an enemy advance in its tracks.
Cheap. 3 points for the base one.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you roll up, get him on the side, in the flank of the enemy, shoot it all the way down the length of the board.
Deep strike him in Terminator armor. There you go.
And then halt the orc advance in its tracks as they fail. Well, I guess you couldn't do it to orc because they would auto-pass their pinning checks for their mob rule, but you get the idea.
I get the idea, yeah.
So anyways, that's the Librarian psychic powers. The army list starts with all the basic boilerplate kind of info about organization charts and entries and blah blah blah, but we can skip past that and roll into our HQ options. Each of these 3, we've got the commander, the chapter chaplain, and the chapter librarian, both have 2 versions of that. So there's like the mini version and the leveled up version.
Yep.
So the commander could be a captain or a master, but either way they're a commander. So I think that's a helpful terminology thing, because in some of this it's describing Space Marine commanders can do this thing, but that would be true for either the captain or the master.
Right. So effectively they're the generic one. One thing I do note about this book in particular that they started moving away from is he starts with no gear. So you have to buy him anything.
He does have power armor.
Well, sorry, let me clarify. He's got power armor, but he has no weapons of any kind. You have to buy him a bolter even, I'm pretty sure. So he has full access to the armory, of course. You could give him all sorts of stuff and really kid him out. But
or you could give him nothing and he just has a knife.
I guess
But he still has 3 attacks. So.
Indeed. What I like about him, though, and I think his biggest use case is they had this entry has the Rights of Battle special rule, which means while he's on the board, people can use his leadership. And
so it's like a way better version of the Imperial Guard thing, because you don't need Voxcasters or anything. It's just as long as he's on the battlefield, everyone anywhere, no range restrictions, anything like that. Yeah.
And it's worth noting the captain is leadership 9 and the master variant is 10. So for 15 points more, the master being 75, the captain being 60, you're basically getting a buff to your army-wide leadership while he's there by 1, and you get another wound. Other than that, they're functionally identical.
Right.
So leadership 10 is hard for me to say no to,
especially when it goes army wide. If it wasn't, then you could argue save some points depending on what you're using him for. But since he has that Rights of Battle, I don't know why you would never not spend 15 points to give everybody +1 leadership when there's
or
other
2,
ways
depending.
to
So it's a big deal, I feel like, and this helps with everything from those fleeing tests or whatever, pinning, to target priority stuff you don't even think about.
Right.
Like that could matter potentially, because a lot of the base Marines are 8s, which is good, but no doubt, but you're gonna fail like
every now and
target
again.
priority test every now and then.
We've seen it happen,
right? And this would make it way less likely to happen. So he's just kind of a force multiplier. I don't see him as particularly like good at fighting or shooting or anything in lieu of his options, but he can be fine. So,
I mean, he's got good stats: weapon skill, ballistic skill 5, strength toughness 4, so initiative 5. He can kill a lot of people.
I think compared to say like a Chaos Lord from the 3.5 decks, because he can't like buff strength and toughness in such direct ways like they can, he will never be as good in melee as they can be.
I
said that
that's
a little
fair
differently. So he's unless he's taking a power fist, which I don't like on him, because then you're ditching the initiative 5, which I've yacked about before, so I won't do it again. But it's like he's going to be struggling, I feel like, with strength.
Yeah.
That's going to be his problem. So, again, do you want that leadership buff? I feel like a lot of the time I do. So he justifies himself kind of through that alone. And then he, of course, unlocks a command squad. So, he's fine. A bit milquetoast, a bit plain, but I think he does what he says on the tin.
Yeah. I think that's cool. I do also just want to point out as we enter into the army list, I love all the little drawings they have for every unit type. It's just a nice, small, straight on, kind of like two-dimensional looking pen ink drawing of every single unit type that's there. And I think that's nice because it doesn't clutter or over create too much extra stuff in the army list. So it's mostly the rules, but you just get that little bit of flavor. Can imagine what they look like, see how they look different than their other Space Marine compatriots that all are in power armor, but
sure,
get to see all those little differences. Moving on to the chapter chaplain, you have the option of the Master of Sanctity or the Reclusiarch, the Master being the better one at 100 points. And this is the same kind of thing. You just boost leadership and get an extra wound for an extra 15 points. That's also the same thing with the chapter.
Yep.
Librarian that we'll talk about in a moment. But what do you think about the chaplain? Is he worth the points? He's
yes.
more, 85 points for the Reclusiarch, 100 for the Master of Sanctity.
Sorry, I interjected really fast.
No, you're
yes,
good.
He is so worth it. The big thing I want to point out just on the tin, yes, he's more expensive, but he actually comes with stuff. So the chaplain,
he doesn't need to buy his power weapon. He's got his Crozius Arcanum.
Yeah, so he's coming with the power weapon and a 4-up invuln with the Rosarius. So the commander has to buy a Iron Halo or whatever.
Let's just check how much that costs real quick.
I have a feeling it's going to be like 20 or 25. So after
25 for the Iron Halo, and then to get a power weapon's another 15.
So after you've done that, you're already more expensive. Now you do get the rights of battle too. So
but instead with the chaplain you get the honor of the chapter and the litanies of hate. So honor of the chapter means that he and anyone he's with get fearless.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, nice. Obviously in a really high leadership army that's less important, but again sometimes it'll matter. And then litanies of hate is really nice because when you charge him or the unit he's attached to, you get to reroll failed hit rolls. So just makes him a little nastier in combat.
This is what warrior priests in fantasy. I wish
they
they did this specifically, but like all the time. Sorry, I'm changing subjects, but yeah, this is awesome. Continue.
Yeah, and I love the models from this era. They've got some cool pictures in the back of the 4th Ed era chaplains, and they just look so cool with their skull helmets and their Croziuses. I would love to find one of those. I printed one off that has some of those aspects to it, but it's just not the same,
I do love a good chaplain. I didn't really talk about different gear loadouts for the commander much, but with the chaplain, I think if you're taking him, you're making a melee skew for the unit he's taking with you.
It makes sense.
I think you don't see this maybe talked about a lot, but I guess it's 4th Ed, but him on a bike is an option. Him with a jump pack is an option. There are ways you can take this guy and make him fast and really add full force multipliers. I really like him with a jump pack, particularly because they just have that extra threat range and oftentimes just more attacks per body than Space Marine bikes. But that doesn't mean bikes are all bad because they're tough 5, right? Just in the tin.
So tankier.
So, and they can turbo boost and stuff. So there's some definite value there.
Yeah, I think those are 2 good alternative builds for that. I think it's worth pointing out when you mentioned that you can buy those things in the armory. That's another weird thing sometimes for people with 4th is that if it says they have armory access, you just flip back and then these are the rest of their options that might not be listed explicitly in their unit entry. And so things like that in the war gear, it's like, oh, I can put them on a bike? That's kind of weird that that's just listed here in the war gear. But the other confusing thing about that is there's the armory page and then the descriptions of all the war gear. And just because it's in the descriptions of war gear doesn't mean it's in the armory, because some of those, like the Rosarius, is only on the chaplain. No one else can get it, but it's described and defined in the war gear section.
There's not a lot of consistency.
No. But that's why it helps to play with people who maybe have some sense of that, or to just read carefully. I have the problem of sometimes I'll just skip through, especially what my mind thinks is introductory text, but actually ended up including a thing that specified something that I needed to know like that.
Sure.
So if you're trying to go back to 4th and you're not familiar with this version of the Codex layouts, I think just make sure you're reading carefully because you might miss little things like that.
all that to say,
Yeah.
basically, I think the only way I wouldn't take this guy is just bare power armor, unless I'm really like just playing a tiny game. And even then, I think I want to put him on a transport. I don't want this guy walking. I
No,
want him
no, he needs to be
going
in
fast.
combat. You do want him to get into a situation where he's going to be able to get that charge, though, because obviously
Yep.
you lose the Litanies of Hate bonus if you are getting charged. So you got to be a little bit, you got to think about how you're going to do that, because you might drive up in a transport, hop out, and get charged.
Yeah. Hopefully,
I guess you'll probably
whatever-
win and then charge again, but
Hopefully, you're being the Space Marine with whatever squad he's in. You're killy enough to kind of make people think twice about wanting to get into
That's
combat when with the first place. But that's not always the case. So those can create interesting circumstances.
Yeah.
for sure.
this is also the only way to get the Holy Relic. Do you
Yep.
have any thoughts on the Holy Relic?
If I recall, does that give more attacks when he pops it?
Yeah, so at one point during the battle, you can have the company standard
Yeah.
that's with the squad that the chaplain is with
The
reveal the
command
Holy
squad,
Relic.
yeah.
And so all Space Marines within 2d6 inches get +1 attack bonus for the rest of the turn. So that's feels a little bit like the WA for
Yeah.
the orcs, where you got to like make sure, okay, this is the turn when all these people are going to be charging, they're going to be in combat, or we're about to get charged by a big Tyranid or orc horde or something like that. You pop that off, hope you roll well on the 2d6, and then all of a sudden you're like doubling most of your army's attacks. Could be pretty cool. It is 30 points, so I think it would kind of depend on the build and the scenario probably, but it could be fun.
It's certainly, I mean, it gets better the bigger your command squad is. So if I'm building my death stack of just maybe like I have a stupid, how big can my command squad be?
9.
Up to
Well,
9?
10 with the sergeant.
So I can have 10, and maybe I've got a chapter librarian, a chapter chaplain, and a commander, and I'm putting them all in a Land
Yeah.
Raider Crusader.
There you go.
And they're all kitted out. And
Well, they wouldn't all fit. You can only put 10 guys in
a
it.
Crusader, I can put up to 15.
Oh, wow, I missed that.
Yeah,
Great.
but if I'm building my super death stack,
Yeah.
like that costs half my army, maybe I really want that because I just get more and more value the bigger the squad is. Now, that might be going over the top, but maybe just a command squad with him with a Land Raider is plenty, right?
Yeah,
Because
but
then
it's important to think about is
Yeah.
obviously you're going to roll 2d6. You could only roll 2. So the more people in his own squad, the better for getting that power off. But
sure.
obviously you want to think about that and how you deploy and how you're moving across the battlefield, keeping units close together to potentially also get that bonus if you roll well enough. So
I think it's cheap enough to consider because it's basically 2 bodies. Of
yeah,
a
well, you do
general
have to
Marine.
also upgrade
The guy
somebody
up.
to a
That's
company
true.
standard bearer for 25, so there's sort of like a pay to play there, but you also get the company standard then, which does something. So
Yeah, I forget what that does specifically. That's probably some leadership bonus.
yeah, you can re-roll a failed morale or pinning test within 12 inches.
Which they're already fearless, so kind of a nombo, but maybe that's cool for other units because it's within 12. So if you have like a meat wave situation going
Yeah.
on, I don't know.
Could work.
It's interesting at the very least, but
Yeah.
yeah, all that to say, I think the chaplain is.
Yeah, it's nice when
probably-
a model looks really cool and actually feels like it's gonna perform on the battlefield. So.
Yeah, I think he's really good. I think he's the best quote unquote value. I think he gets worse the bigger the game is, though, because I think the commander, while a worse fighter objectively and less efficient, that writes a battle rule while boring is just going to pay dividends over a 6-turn game
Yeah.
where you're rolling morale checks.
Well, that's where their special rule comes in handy, that you can have all three
Indeed.
for one HQ slot, so you don't
Indeed.
have to pick.
That's true. Just have it all. Just got to pay for it. But yeah.
So let's move on to the chapter librarian, our final HQ choice here. It's also worth pointing out, we'll get to this in a second, we've been talking about the command squad, but that can be either a Terminator command squad if your commander's in Terminator armor, or a regular Marine command squad. But we'll talk about those in a second after we round these guys out. But yeah, hit us with the chapter librarian. He's either an epistolary at 115 or a codicier at 100.
Yeah, so same exact stat situation. You're getting 1 more leadership and a wound. And they all come with that 1 power we specified, and you can buy the additional ones, etc. at the costs on page 21. Kind of like what I was talking about during the powers. I feel like he's a close combat guy in disguise. I think you can definitely give him a storm bolter, and he can, shoot it up as well. And then maybe when he gets close, then you switch over to the whatever it's called, Storm of Wrath or whatever, Emperor's Wrath.
That makes sense.
And that's totally fine, and keep him cheap. Just because a force weapon is truly scary. I mean,
When
is
you're
it-
leadership 10 and you're doing it in a...
is it always going to come up? there's going to be matchups where the force weapon is basically the same as a power weapon.
Yeah.
So,
Am I remembering force weapons right, that it's an opposed leadership, or they just take
I think
leadership?
they just take it.
Oh, okay.
So against, like, say, Knobs with multiple wounds, like, he pays himself back like dividends. But against just orc boys, it's like, well, I don't care. Like, I'm tough 4. You're only strength 4. Like, you know what I mean? That's his weakness.
Yeah.
So that's where he really, if you want to get, I think, super value, you want to look at Veil of Time. You want to look at Might of Heroes, where he's just getting more swings.
Yeah.
Or buffing another character with that Might of Heroes or whatever. So he can kind of be a bit of a support character. He does get a Psychic Hood, which allows him to stop opposing psychic powers, which is kind of cool. So he gives you some psychic defense. I don't find in most
And that one
of
is
my-
opposed, I think. You just roll off, add your leadership. So I guess most psychers probably are going to also be leadership 9 or 10.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it at least a little bit more hard for them. And you'll maybe, if you're against Eldar with their Farseer, maybe you'll stop Guide every once in a while. You know? And if you're against some, I don't know, other random army, you might stop him more than every once in a while. So kind of cool. I think he's fine. And he does what he says, but he's not like blowing my mind. He's expensive too. He's the most expensive one because he's 100 or 115 base, and then you got to buy the powers on top of them. So and he doesn't
get the
come
one
with
for
the
free
invuln.
at least.
Yeah, he does get the one for free, but he also does not get an invuln. I want to say, unlike the chaplain.
Yeah,
who
he'd have
just
to buy
comes-
the Iron Halo again. Yeah, that is true. Would you ever put any of these 3 options in Terminator armor?
Yes. I would consider putting all 3 of them in Terminator armor, depending on what I'm trying to do. I like the Librarian in Terminator armor because he could pick any other Terminator in the squad, give him more swings with the Power Fist. That's always good. Again, I like the Chaplain. Again, just Terminators charging with the Chaplain. That sounds pretty good. And then he can teleport in, so that seems fine. Maybe not the first thing I would do with him, but he's totally good. The commander, I would be like the least excited about, but he's still fine. Like, he's still a commander in Terminator armor. So I would consider it for all of them. I think for me, where it would turn into more is like, what is my objective for the overall force? And what is that like Terminator squad trying to do? Right. Yeah. And then how does that HQ choice complement them best? Because if I'm like all in on, I just want to get the charge and I want to throw stuff in the Land Raider, I think I'm thinking Chaplain with Termi armor. But then again, the Librarian makes a good argument. But if I'm teleporting in, maybe I would much rather have the Librarian because he can drop and then at least
do a
spell right away. Whereas the Chaplain is just kind of standing there, less good on a deep strike situation. So stuff to think about, I guess.
Yeah, but it's nice to know the options make sense, that you can use them. I think either way works. They feel fairly appropriately costed to go either way. So obviously the Terminator armor is awesome. It's also super expensive.
Yes.
So if you don't want to spend all those points, you can take the regular command squad, and that's also fine.
Yeah.
You also don't need to. You can take them independently, which I think is helpful because if you're doing like a slow growth thing like we do and you're starting at smaller point levels, it's nice to be able to take just a captain at 60 points, and I guess 61 at least because you want to give him a bolter probably.
61 points for your guy, or whatever.
And then that way, you can scale it quite a bit, which I think is helpful.
For sure.
Cool. Let's talk about those HQ command squads. So again, you can't take these as their own HQ choice.
Yes.
Apart from one of those 3 options we just talked about. But
they're the honor guard or the entourage
yes.
for the real guys.
Which they start out as just bog standard Space Marines, 15 points a model, same exact stats as your regular attack squad, but they have some different options available. And they essentially equate to the veterans, right?
They're almost the same, but they actually are slightly different. So the big thing that stands out to me about the command squad is they can actually have 2 special weapons.
Okay, that's nice.
Even veterans cannot do that. So it's like, sorry, I gotta readjust the lighting. They can have double. I've lost it, but they can have more special weapons than is like normally allowed. Like they can have double plasma guns, so they can do like the chaos thing. So that's possible. You could do double melta, double flamer. You could do double heavy weapons if you wanted to. I don't know if I would really want to do that with this squad, but the option is there. I just like that they can double down on a special weapon type.
That does help, because usually you're split. One guy has to have this type and one guy has to have that type, sort of a thing, yeah.
And then what guys that aren't given one of those doubled up weapon types, and you can buy them grenades typically. Just want to throw that out there too. But no melt-a-bombs. Those are not listed here. And then you can make them one of 3 specialists. You can make them an apothecary for 25 points. I actually kind of dig this. They just ignore a failed armor save.
Yeah, it's like a medic for the Imperial Guard, but they also have the reductor as well, which is a weird thing. Some kind of weird
CC weapon?
No, it actually, it makes so if they are, I think people who die in their squad within 6 inches are not counted towards
victory
did
points?
You lose 25% and have to take a morale check, because you don't feel as bad that your battle brother died if you know his gene seed's getting pulled out.
Okay.
Because that's what that part does. So I think that's interesting. It's like, don't worry, it's okay that he died because I'm taking his gene seed.
I've got his stuff.
Yeah. So you're less likely to have to take a morale check against took 25% or more casualties due to shooting.
I guess that's a nice bonus. I'm taking them for the ignore the armor save, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, with high leadership, it's probably going to be rare. If you have a chaplain in there, it doesn't matter anyways.
It could matter, I guess. There are situations where that will matter. The other 2 specialists are the company standard bearer. We talked a little bit about that. He costs 25 points, and then you get to re-roll morale and pinning tests, etc. within 12 inches. That can affect multiple units, so that's kind of cool. And then finally, my favorite, the company champion. This is like, if you want a close combat, just random dude.
Yeah.
I like the story behind this, I think, more than how it actually is, because I like just the idea of, like, this is our best guy. This is, like, the dude who's really good at fighting.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
It feels like hearkening back to, like, the Iliad, where, you know, Paris steps out from the lines and he's the greatest hero of the Trojans.
Exactly.
So come fight me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's got that. It's David and Goliath or whatever, just like we're going to duel it out or whatever. I really like some of the Black Templar stuff with the Emperor's Champion for this similar kind of vibe, but this is the normal Space Marine equivalent. And he basically gets a power weapon, a combat shield, and a bolt pistol for 20 points. And that just makes him a better fighter. And then in addition to that, it does say all specialists with Terminator honors may select additional equipment from the armory, see the armory for detail, etc. But essentially you can give I missed it, it's under sergeant. You can give the sergeant Terminator honors, and if you do so, you can also give every other member that for 10 points. So it's kind of this weird unlock, but you can make these guys actually pretty scary in melee if you want to make that death squad. You can have them all have
extra attack, yeah.
Right, and they can all start with bolt pistol and close combat weapon, unlike a tactical marine base.
So it can be very melee focused, again, if you're putting the chaplain in there.
Sure, so I could see, that just base, honestly, and then throw that in the Land Raider, maybe depending on what your matchups are. Couple flamers because they can take 2, or a couple melta because they can take 2.
Yeah.
And then they run out and do stuff. Oh, also they can take special skills for 3 points. They can do Furious Charge, Tank Hunters, or Infiltrate. For me, Infiltrate is by far the most interesting. That is, I feel like, pretty nuts because that's basically giving Infiltrate to a character.
Yeah.
So that just seems amazing.
Yeah, which it does depend a little bit on the terrain, where is available that you can deploy that's out of sight and thus 12 inches away. Otherwise, you're 18 inches away, which maybe isn't quite as helpful depending on where you end up.
For sure.
But could be very, very helpful. We've seen it do all sorts of things. If you see our battle report, Eldar versus Imperial Guard, you infiltrated those vets over on the flank.
And they just shot at Blokesalt and ate a lot of fire. But I just feel like that lets you... That unlocks different possibilities that you otherwise just would never have. And now you can't take a vehicle. So I guess there's some opportunity cost. But I really like that they have the option.
Yeah. I do think the whole Terminator honors thing is another situation where you got to read carefully because it's kind of confusing that it says the thing about the specialist with Terminator honors before it even says you could have bought Terminator honors. It took me rereading that a couple times to be like,
that tripped me up as I was reading it, but I knew it was in there.
Yeah, and then it's specific to only the specialists that took Terminator honors also get the armory access. So even though everyone in the squad can buy the Terminator honors, I think has to. You can't just buy some people, right? If you decide to buy it for everyone has to buy it.
It says may. It says may be given Terminator honors at 10 points per model. So I guess it's not
I guess the way I
forced.
read it is he may do that, but then if he does, then all other Space Marines may be given.
Right. May being the key word. Are you saying it's forced upon them, or am I misunderstanding you?
I would think you have to do if you do the sergeant, you can then opt to do the rest of the squad at 10 points per model.
Oh,
I don't think you can only do 2 guys.
Because it says then all other. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could read it that way.
Well, listeners, if you know there's an FAQ that clarifies that, or you just know how you always played, let us know. But
What I would say is if I'm building my list around that, I'm probably going all in anyway. I don't know if I'm playing like super min-maxy where I'm like got a squad of like some of these guys have bolters. Some of them have bolt pistols and chainswords, and it's not very efficient, unfortunately. So
I think there's just other examples where it seems like they try to do that sort of a thing where if you're going to do this, you have to do it for the whole squad to keep things from having weird mixed squads typically. So that's why I interpreted it that way.
That makes sense too, because that would be hard to keep track of too, because they all look mostly the same on the board.
Well, theoretically, you're modeling the ones that have Terminator honors with something on them that shows that they have Terminator honors.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Are those your Terminator honor guys? No, those are these ones. You see the laurels I painted onto the helmets? I'm like, oh yeah,
of course,
that's them.
Yeah, that's a great way to indicate that though, since you pointed that out.
Called that out in the book there in the back. But nice. Overall I think they're very good. I think they're a cool choice, and I like that they can take double special weapons. That's to me
that is a nice
the
unique
biggest
element to set them apart from the other elites. We also have the Terminator Command Squad. Like we said, this is just the other option if your commanders are in Terminator armor.
These seem less unique than the standard Terminators. They almost read for me like just a carbon copy, but it's an HQ slot. So, I mean, I guess Terminators are next up, but...
And it does give you just a way to get more Terminators than you normally could if you filled up your elite slot. So
you can get a lot of Terminators. You can't get them in troops, I don't think, but ever, even with any of the chapter traits.
I don't think so, no.
But you can have... And these squads can be up to 10. So one thing that is cool, though, about the HQ choice is the minimum is 4, obviously, because you have
the fifth
the
is
character.
the character, yeah.
But I think that's nice that you can get less total investment, whereas if you were just plugging them into another squad, the minimum is going to be 5. So
that is interesting.
Slightly cheaper.
I wonder why they do that, because the regular HQ command squad doesn't have the 3 to 9.
I have no idea.
That's bizarre.
just because, I guess. Maybe it probably has something to do with like transport sizes, maybe, because you can't fit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
6 Terminators into
that has to
a
be
normal
exactly
Land
why.
Raider.
Yep.
That's a complete guess. That would make sense, but
it makes sense.
I think they're fine. I think Terminators are good. They still have the option for double assault cannon or double heavy flamer, or you can give them a cyclone missile launcher, which I think we should probably explain. That's a unique weapon to Terminators that are loyalists.
Yeah, it's a missile launcher rack mounted that's on their back that they can shoot in addition to their storm bolter or whatever other weapon they're holding.
Correct. So that's cool. Pretty neat, where they can fire a storm bolter and a missile launcher in the same turn. So
which, other than that, it's just a normal missile launcher. It can fire crack or frag like a normal missile launcher. So the thing that makes it cyclone is just that it's back mounted and therefore can fire simultaneously, which is always nice to get extra shooting going out of one unit. From what I understand, that's a lot more common nowadays. You'll get a data sheet and you just get to fire all the weapons all the time. That wasn't here. Usually you get one weapon per dude. So the fact that I can fire 2 weapons with this guy, this is great.
Right. So you could get, and if you're shooting a frag missile, one guy could kill, depending on what he's hitting, 5 or 6 models. Like, that's like magical Christmas land, but like that could happen. And that's like,
it's happening against my orcs.
Right. So it's just like, oh, they blew up all the grots with that one missile, and he storm boltered another one. It's like, the high end potential is there. But
and it's just, if you imagine what that would look like, is so cinematic. You just got storm bolters firing on full auto and missiles shooting out and just exploding amongst the horde charging at them. Epic.
Indeed.
I also feel like the assault cannon is really good bang for buck, at least against orcs.
It's insane.
Because I die in droves. The fact that you can have 2 of them, they're heavy 4, so you're shooting 4.
They're assault 4.
Assault 4,
Even better. But yeah, no, they're gross. Rending in 4th edition, I think.
No, it's heavy 4.
Is it heavy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Unless this is a typo, it says
no,
heavy
you're probably
4.
right. It's heavy 4. But they can
they
shoot.
Don't care.
They can shoot. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
So it's essentially assault.
It's essentially an assault weapon.
But it's strength 6 AP 4. So like that just kills orcs on 2s
Yep.
And they get no armor save, even if you paid for the upgraded heavy armor.
And they rend.
And rending, which is auto wounds on a 6 when you roll
to
the hit.
Yeah. And ignores all armor.
Yeah.
So even if you have mega knobs.
You can take 2 of those, and you're getting 8 of those shots a turn at ballistic skill 4.
Yep.
That hurts. So that just, to me, feels like one of the most points-efficient weapons in the game. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've had bad experiences.
No, you're right. I think 4th edition, I think anyone who's listening to this and played it back in the day, I don't know, I didn't, but I'm going to assume people were like, assault cannons are pretty good because they can just kill tanks.
Yeah.
I've had them walk up with it. That, you think, oh, I'll take the missile launcher option. No, you can just take the assault cannon, shoot a predator in the front. You get a 6, you're probably going to pen because it's 6 plus 2d6 to pen. So on average, you get a 13.
Wait, why are you getting 2d6?
Because when you rend on a
I
vehicle, you get an
that.
extra d6 to penetrate.
Dang.
So they're good against everything.
And
you
the
can
fact
just
that you're firing 4 shots, you're probably going to get some 6s
right.
eventually.
So it's like, and if you got 2 of them, I just need 1 6. I can blow up your Land Raider.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of gross. I'm going to be on now. We have some players that, and I know he might be listening. He rolls terribly. I feel like with him, he never gets 6s, and it always sucks. And I feel bad for him.
He still kills plenty of my orcs with
Fair enough, but he always rolls badly. It feels like against me anyway. And I'm always like, oh man, he's going to shoot 8 assault cannon shots. And I'm like sweating bullets or whatever. And he'll hit like 3. And then he'll wound some stuff or whatever. But it's just, if you don't get the rending, what I will say about assault cannons is against other Marine equivalents, it does have some feel bads because they're still getting their 3 ups.
Yeah, that's true.
So it turns into a 6s please, 6s please sort of gun. But they're still insane value. You are absolutely correct.
I think that just goes back to my complaint about things being Marine equivalent focused, because then that's like, design the assault cannon to be for that. Now it doesn't all of a sudden feel as powerful, but then use it against any other army and it's just devastating.
If it was like strength 6 AP 5 but kept rending, that way at least the orcs could still pay for the heavy armor
out the wazoo to get heavy armor in the first place. At least they would still get a save.
Indeed. But they're very good. So
there you go.
There's definitely a value to just say get as many assault cannons as you can.
The Terminator Command Squad also, since they're essentially like veterans, is the idea, can get the special skills. Obviously, they're not going to get Infiltrate. That's not an option for them because they're lumbering behemoths. But they can do the Furious Charge or Tank Hunters if you want. And so those are options available for you. And then this is an example of, again, it says all models may be upgraded. So I think it's like if you're going to do it, everybody has to have it, including the character that is with them.
I agree with you.
But yeah, I think they're cool. I like that this version of the HQ command squads feel like they're veterans. We talked about this with the Imperial Guard. Their command squads feel like they're not veterans, which just seems kind of strange that
they don't have BS4 or
right, whatever. Or even any special skills like this, like the veterans later in the list can have.
Yeah.
So it's nice that that feels just cohesive in the fact that these are essentially the veteran Marines, just
in better
with the
armor.
Commander. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
And they teleport so they can deep strike. Just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, that's worth pointing out that all Terminators can by default teleport onto the battlefield. This does require... Oh, no, this is even if it's not part of the mission being played. They can always deep strike.
Yep. I think so.
So that's crazy. And I think in some missions, that can be really powerful in looking at some of the non-standard missions later on in the book. I understand why they don't allow for deep strike, because you can just land on the objective and do different things, which is very cool that these guys can break that rule and do that, because that's exactly what the lore describes them as doing, is that they're these like surgical strikes. We're just going to drop right onto the objective and then have it out and cut to the heart of the enemy kind of thing. So super cool. But it's something to consider if you're playing casually and you're like, oh, I just want to try out this fun mission. Maybe don't take as many Terminators as you possibly can and break the mission just by deep striking into the behind enemy lines thing if you're just trying to have a casual game to try out a fun mission.
And I guess I would just mirror most of what we just said about the normal Terminator squad under the elites, because it's basically the exact same thing. They're really good. The only key difference being is the minimum is 5 now. And I don't know. I guess one thing we didn't touch on, you can buy them chain fists. I don't know if that's really necessary. I think it's fine to buy one guy a chain fist, and then you just pull that guy off last if you think you're going to get to a vehicle.
Yeah,
because
they're essentially just can openers.
Right, you just that if you do have a chain fist, okay, everything in the game is scared of you. So
that's 2d6 armor penetration,
yes,
right? Yeah.
with strength 8. So yeah, it's basically a melt-a-gun in melee. So pretty scary. But yeah, no, assault cannons, cyclone missile launchers, heavy flamer. I think I want to love it so bad. It is the cheapest option here at 10 points per. But the problem is like I feel like even in the best case scenario for the assault or the heavy flamer, the assault cannon is still just fine. And then there's going to be way more situations where the assault cannon is fantastic and the heavy flamer does nothing.
Yeah, that's fair.
The problem.
That's a good point.
So if you're building like an all-comer list, which I think is fun to try and think of, it's like the problem is the assault cannon is so good against pretty much everything that it's hard to be like, well, if I'm trying to build all-comers, I just take the gun that's never bad.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, that's fair. Unless you're in a Space Hulk and then the heavy flamer.
Heavy flamer. There are probably some time if you're, I guess, if you know you can deep strike in the drop pod and you do the minimum distance thing and you think you're gonna really get right next to somebody, you can guarantee you get the template down. Okay,
could be big.
maybe it's pretty big. What do you think about the assault squad? We've seen this tried a lot.
Yeah, I think it seems like people in our group want to love them, but have a really hard time using them.
Yes.
Well, maybe we just saw the first Land Raider in our current round of the campaign. Did someone finally build
I have
one?
not seen one
then
yet.
maybe it hasn't happened yet. I haven't played against one at the very least,
I
but
have
it
not
seems like an assault a Land Raider is assault by default, but they've got the assault ramp at the front so you can charge out of it.
Yep.
Even though it's not open topped, feels like the primary way to use them, because otherwise they're just slow stomping across the battlefield. They can't charge the turn they teleport. They can't charge the turn they pop out of a drop pod. Obviously, they're Terminators with a 2+ save and a 5-up invuln, so they're probably going to weather the storm after they've dropped in or teleported in. So they might still get a chance to charge. That being said, I think that, again, if you're not going to take a Land Raider to deliver them, it's a lot harder to justify taking them over the regular guys that have Storm Bolters. But
yeah, so they're basically bullet magnets is what I was going to say. I think just by their inclusion, I think you have to have multiple things like going on. I think where I've seen a lot of games go awry for them is they just kind of show up by themselves.
Right.
Everybody goes, that's by far this, because they are actually, if they get the charge, they are genuinely probably one of the scariest melee units in the entire game.
Yeah, you can give them either a pair of Lightning Claws or a Thunderhammer and Storm Shield combo.
We've seen them a lot with Lightning Claws. I think pound for pound in 4th edition, that might be best. However, you can mix and match, and we haven't seen a lot of that in our groups. I've seen just a lot of people just taking all the Lightning Claws because, frankly, that's a very flashy way to take them. They get a ton of attacks. They're re-rolling failed wound rolls, so they just pick up infantry like nobody's business. But having a couple Thunderhammer and Storm Shield guys in there isn't bad. The Storm Shield gives them a 4-up invulnerable save in melee only, which kind of sucks. I wish it was a 4-up all the time. I think they changed that later. Eventually, the Storm Shields get huge buffs where it's like a 3-up invuln all the time against everything. Mm-hmm. And then that becomes the go-to build because it's just like, well, now we're just always at worst a power armor Marine. And that's just the way to take Terminators. But at this point in 4th edition, they don't have that. So, I don't know. The Thunderhammers are fine. They're basically power fists with a bonus. They always shake a vehicle if you hit it. So that's not nothing.
Yeah. And they can cause someone to not attack the following turn, too. Or not until initiative 0, essentially.
Right.
So it gives you another chance to kill them before they strike.
Yeah. So they're fine. I think they're genuinely scary. But I agree with you. I think I've watched enough people try to do it via teleporting. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody actually footwalk them, like just march across the table. People aren't really doing that, but I've seen them teleported in a myriad of times. And I've seen people like try to get a teleport homer right in front of me, but or whatever. The problem
dies before they show up.
The problem is you can't guarantee when they're going to arrive by reserves.
Yeah.
If you're doing that strategy. So even if you set up everything perfectly, you could just roll a 1 on your reserve roll and then you're
exactly.
And then they get
and then the homer dies before they actually come
in. And then they show up a turn later and now it's just harder to orchestrate. If everything goes perfectly, I bet you they're terrifying and probably feel unstoppable. But in that moment, what you might not realize is in a lot of other games, they just weren't there because they failed to show up in time. And because they have no offensive output outside of melee, they basically have to get in. They have to be in CC to do anything. The other Terminators, they're pretty good in melee, but they're great at shooting too.
Yeah.
So you're just getting more output every turn that they just exist on the board. And I think just deploying them normally and just foot walking up.
Right, and then if you get into assault, you'll still do well.
Yeah,
but you'll be killing stuff on your way.
100%. So whereas the assault Terminators, you just can't do that. So if I'm taking them, I'm either, like you're saying, I'm going big with a Land Raider. I'm thinking I'm going big with like 8 of them in a Land Raider or Crusader.
Yeah.
Going as big as I can. I wouldn't put them in a normal Land Raider, although I have mixed feelings about the normal Land Raider, which we'll get into because of its weapon configuration. But putting them in there, I think that's the only way they're ever going to get a consistent charge consistently. The other way is you need to have like infiltrate out the wazoo. You got to be having like scouts doing weird stuff,
just so
bikers.
There's too many other things for them to focus on.
Yeah, I think the problem that I've seen is people go really hard into Terminators and they'll have like, maybe not problem, but what I've seen is a lot of people will have like multiple squads. In the magical Christmas land is they all teleport down
at the same time.
But I've seen that happen like pretty much never. Usually they come in piecemeal or not exactly where you want them.
Right.
Something goes wrong effectively. But if you can have them be one of many things and the other things are at least more consistent, like I'm going to get an infiltrate squad up closer. I know I've got some bikers. I know I have an assault squad. And they're one of 4 things that is running up, or maybe I've got some, I don't know, what are those land speeders? All these fast things this army has access to. In combination, sure, these guys might get bullet whipped, because when they do drop down, they might still just get shot off, but like you were saying, unless there's a plethora of AP2 in front of them, I've seen them weather startling amounts of firepower. Yep. They will probably be dead if they get really focused, and that is a feel bad situation oftentimes. But man, oh man, you might have just bought time for like every other unit in your army.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
I will also say I like the size of the storm shields in this edition. You can see it in the art right here. I feel like they turned into bulkhead doors eventually, which just feel weird to me, but it's just like feels like a
I guess
more
I haven't seen a
adequate
new model
size. Maybe I'm just thinking of some other new Primaris model that I saw. Not all Terminator storm shields are giant, but I just like that. Feels more right.
Okay.
But it's probably entirely
appropriately
nostalgia bias.
sized. Is it more like this guy on page 76?
Yeah, it feels like everybody has those now, but even bigger. They're like as tall as the Space Marine or whatever.
Oh, okay. Crazy.
All right, moving on to the second entry in Elites, essentially, because it's 2 Terminator options. We've got the Veteran Squad. These are identical to normal Space Marines, except they get the 3-point specialist upgrade that we talked about with the command squads. So they have those same options of Furious Charge, Tank Hunters, or Infiltrate, but it's built in because they have to take that. So everybody will have one. And so they cost 18 points instead of 15 points. But otherwise, stats and points-wise, they're the same as normal. Do they have different weapon options, though?
Yes, mostly are melee based. They can have a guy with double lightning claws. They can have a guy specifically who's not a sergeant have a power fist.
It's pretty sweet.
So you could have multiple power fists. For me, if I'm taking this squad, I'm not making them shooty. I'm making some kind of weird close combat thing, and then I'm guessing what transport am I putting it in, / am I taking infiltrate with my special skill?
I'm like a true knight.
I'm really big on infiltrate, and this book actually has a lot of ways to get it.
Yeah,
so
you could have a very sneaky Space Marine army.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how I take these guys. Unlike the HQ choice, I don't think you can give the whole squad Terminator honors, so they won't be that crazy, but you can have it like basically a second HQ mini squad.
You can give the whole squad Terminator.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed
honors,
that then.
Yeah.
So you can have a whole nother HQ squad basically, but it's an elites.
Yeah, which is nice. I think it is funny always just to think about power armored guys being infiltrators. Like, how did they actually sneak up there in these giant pauldrons?
Raven Guard.
Yeah, I guess. It's a little silly, but that's okay. Maybe it's just through distraction. They're just busy looking at the other power armored guys.
We can go with that.
These ones. But yeah, anything else to say? I mean, I think they're pretty similar to the command squad, like you said.
Yeah,
so.
this book is gonna, as we go, it rhymes, it repeats. So,
Next up, we have a Dreadnought, which is a cool elites option here. It's one of the most heavily armored walkers, I think, in the game, with front and side armor 12. So pretty tanky as far as that goes. Yeah, not open topped either. And the lore behind this is really cool. Also kind of terrifying because it's essentially a Space Marine who should have died, but they managed to keep alive and then stuck in a sarcophagus that they attached guns and legs to. And now they just get to live forever and fight until they really die. And it sounds like they at least put them to sleep, unlike the Chaos ones who are just raging all the time as they go insane.
They're insane because they've been stuck in the box for so long and they can't die. Whereas these guys seem like, because they can like talk, like they speak.
It seems that way, yeah.
So it's like they seem like cogent. You could like have a conversation with this walking metal box with guns, which is kind of interesting. So they seem like okay with it. They're like,
and they can be put to sleep because it says earlier that like
true.
they are awakened in times of great need or whatever. So it seems like they can go into cryo sleep or something.
So they're not always like
just sitting in a box.
Existence is horrible.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because I guess you still don't have hand. I guess you have the Dreadnought close combat weapon. You could try to do stuff with. Otherwise, it seems kind of boring.
I'm gonna play a game of Warhammer against Dreadnought. He's gonna break his models.
By default, you've got that Dreadnought close combat weapon with a built-in storm bolter, and then also an assault cannon on the other arm. So look at those assault cannons.
Yeah, I think that's his base, and he's 105. I think that's a great way to take him.
Yeah. It's cool to think about popping a flamer in there. You can swap that storm bolter out for a heavy flamer, but like you said, with the Terminators, it's just hard to do that when you can be getting hits a lot more frequently with the storm bolter rather than having to make sure you get close with the heavy flamer.
Only time I would do heavy flamer if I'm putting them in the drop pod.
That's a good point. I forgot you could drop pod Dreadnoughts, which is also crazy to think about, but would look
imagine
awesome.
That dropping down assault cannon and heavy flamer.
You don't have to choose.
You get both.
You have a couple other options. You can do las cannon, twin linked actually, which is nice, or a multi-melta, and that replaces the assault cannon. So you could swap out that arm. And then you can also take a missile launcher, but that replaces the close combat weapon and the storm bolter / heavy flamer that would be on the close combat weapon. I don't know that really seems that worth it. It's cheap. It's only 10 points. But I guess like if you know you're up against a lot of armor, maybe it's a way to just get more anti-armor, do a las cannon and a missile launcher. I don't know.
That's basically it. So are you taking the twin link las cannon? Okay, you probably want the missile launcher because now you're just an anti-tank dread.
It's true because you can't split your fire. So if you're shooting at tanks anyways, why have the storm bolter?
Right. So I think that's really what that choice is for. So the build for me is, okay, what's with the arm, heavy flamer or not? Basically, are you dropping in? And then do you want the multi-melta to pop a tank when you drop in? Or do you want the assault cannon just for generalist goodness? Mm-hmm. And that's really your choices for me. That's how I look at this. I like keeping them cheap, but I also like just having a guy sitting in the back with the venerable upgrade, which we'll talk about maybe in a second here, with the missile and twin link las cannon, just shooting every turn and then being slightly harder to kill, hopefully, because he's venerable, and just not even, I guess you can move 6s in turn, but just being a slightly mobile fire base effectively. They are BS4, so they're just as accurate as all the other Marines.
And twin linked las cannon, so reroll and misses is pretty accurate.
So
I do like that if you take the missile, you lose the close combat weapon, but still get to make attacks. You're essentially just kicking people, which is hilarious to me.
You're only strength 6 though, and you lose the ignore armor and all that other goodness though.
Yeah, that comes with the Dreadnought close combat weapon.
Yep.
But yeah, Venerable is an upgrade you can take. It is not cheap. It's 20 points, but it means that you can make your opponent re-roll the result of either a glancing or penetrating hit. So if you're going to be wrecked anyways, it's kind of like, well, why not? I'll make you re-roll it. You do have to take the new result, even if it's worse, which is a common Warhammer thing. But if you're already being wrecked, who cares? I mean, the only worst thing then is exploding, I guess. I probably wouldn't use it if I was getting immobilized or weapon destroyed, because then the chance that it could roll up into a destroyed result is maybe not worth the chance.
It really depends on, what's going on. If I've gotten penned already, it's like, am I wrecked? Okay, let's try to get a 1 or a 2, so I'm going to live.
Yeah.
But I think where it gets really interesting is on the glance table.
That's true, because there's only one result that is wrecked.
Right, so it's like, if they glance me and they get that, it's like, okay, auto roll it. Do it again, and now I'm going to live. Or it's like you said, they got the immobilize. Do I make him do it again with the chance I get wrecked? But then there's a bigger chance I just get shaken.
It's true.
So
I don't think I would take the risk.
oh, okay, respect.
But I'm risk averse.
I've seen dreadnoughts survive a lot of firepower because of this. So I don't know.
I think it's a great upgrade for when I get destroyed results. I just don't know that I would ever risk it because I can just imagine like, oh, I'm gonna go for it and then just roll that I get wrecked instead.
For sure.
Suck. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. It helps keep you alive longer, and I think it even can be a deterrent to make them a target because if they're choosing between two armored targets to shoot at and they know this one's a little harder to kill, they might just pick something else to shoot at. So I think that's interesting to think about in terms of giving your opponent choices about what they're going to target. And so if you want them to shoot at something else rather than this, that's one way to maybe deter them. If they're like, I might not be able to kill it as easily, they might shoot at a rhino or something instead.
Right. Yeah.
Next up, we've got the Tech Marine, which is kind of a weird elite choice because he can just be himself. So you can take only the Tech Marine as a single model unit, in which case he is an independent character, but you also can give him up to 4 servitors. This is really similar to the Imperial Guard Tech Priest, where you can have gun servitors, combat servitors, or technical servitors. So all very similar as far as those go, but he's not cheap. He's 65 points by himself, but he does give some potential benefits. I don't know. I feel like for me, it's kind of similar to the Tech Priest and the Imperial Guard that I wouldn't often use up a whole elite slot for him. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not in love with him. I think because of how Blessing of the Omniscient works, where he's fixing weapons or immobilized results, he has to get a 6. Yeah. And then the additional technical servitors he takes, give him +1.
So unless you're going all in on that.
So for me, it's like I have to probably take a minimum of 2 technical servitors if I want to be doing any repairing.
Yeah, and the other tough thing about that is you have to start the movement phase in base contact, so you can't even move up and fix it. So I feel like you're probably only going to be able to even try to do this once or twice.
Yeah, and then if they know that's there, maybe they don't even shoot at that vehicle, and then you just bought it, and maybe that's breaking the simulation of the battle or whatever. Yeah. But that's one of those things where it's like this guy, unfortunately, how the rules work just really, I think, undercut him. He's really cool. He can get this like servo harness.
The servo harness is kind of cool.
Gives him a lot of different weapons and
even just
armor.
Taking him with another unit with that and no servitors could be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know about good, but because it essentially is Terminator armor without the invul, and it upgrades his armor to 2+.
Yep.
Which is what they call Artificer armor.
Yep.
And then, yeah, you get a twin-link plasma pistol that's built into it and
flamer,
extra.
I
forgot the flamer. Yeah, wow.
It gets all sorts of random stuff. It turns him into a kit bash guy, but and I think some of his attacks count as power fist attacks or something. But he's all over the place. But for me, the core thing that I would want to bring him for is basically I want to fix like this Predator Annihilator that I've got parked somewhere. And I want it to be parked there all game, and he's sitting behind it.
Or if you had the transport space with another squad that was going in one, you could attach him to that squad because he is allowed to disembark into base contact and in the same phase attempt to fix it. So that could be a way to just try to make sure your transport gets across the field.
Maybe that, I just feel it's so expensive for that. But yeah, no, I mean, he provides an option that nowhere else in the book could you do anything like this. The gun servitors are kind of cool. I think you've mentioned in the past the plasma cannons. It's just really expensive.
Yeah, and in a army list that has all sorts of ways to get plasma cannons and similar stuff, it's not as special. I think in the Imperial Guard army, it's just a little more special to have access to a plasma cannon.
Right, yeah. Here it's a little more trite.
Yeah. He does also have the Signum and Auspex as basic war gear. The Auspex is just a kind of a weird thing that I think gives him night vision, or is that the thing that lets you shoot? Now I got to look it up.
I think that's when you can see people deep strike.
I think it's infiltrate.
Is it infiltrate?
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody infiltrates within 4d6 inches, you can shoot them once during deployment.
Yeah, it's so random, but it'll catch some people. I guess
it's also helpful in raid missions because I think it also improves their. Yeah, you get to sound the alarm if he's a sentry and somebody shows up within 4d6 inches. But then also the Signum lets him or somebody in his unit reroll 1 to hit roll per turn. So that's just, depending on who he's with, could be helpful.
Do that on your plasma cannon.
Some Devastators, or that,
I don't know.
Yeah, anything else to say about him?
Not much. I will actually have one thing. There's a chapter trait in the back that lets you take these guys as an HQ slot and makes them 15 points more, and they get 3 wounds and leadership 10. So you can,
right. Yeah, because they're like the scions of Mars or something. Yeah.
So I thought that's cool. So there is a chapter trait if you want to be like the tech guys. There's a chapter trait that lets you be the tech guys and have them be your HQ. So I think that's cute. That's all.
Nice to have the option for the customization.
I don't know how good it is, but I think it's cute, and I like that.
It's always nice to have choices.
Also, they look cool. In lore, aren't they usually like they're painted in red armor? I like how librarians are like kind of blue regardless.
I think it explains that
Chaplains
somewhere.
are black, and then techs are red, I think.
Yeah, for Mars, but it does say somewhere that they rarely fully cover their chapter colors as well. So it's usually a combination of red and their chapter colors. But
that's your mileage may vary.
It's a fun painting and modeling opportunity of how do you create that combo of I'm still part of this chapter, but I have this allegiance to Mars and the machine god. It makes him
stand out beyond the fact that he's got all this crazy gear.
Yeah, which is cool. All right, moving into troops, we've got the regular tactical squad, what everybody thinks of when they think of Space Marines. So,
you're right.
Yeah, it's the veterans with fewer options, a little more restrictions. They're 15 points a model, and then, this is the MEQ, the Marine equivalent stat line right here.
They
Weapon
have
skill,
bolters.
ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 4, 1 attack, leadership 8, 3+ save.
They're great. They're not like amazing, but they're fine. They are let down, if only because I know of the rule that later Marine books get, which is combat squads.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I won't go into too much, but rules is written, they don't have that here, but it basically lets people take a 10-man squad and then like split it
at the beginning.
And I think that was really flavorful and cool, and let you during army building do things like have a las cannon and a flamer in the same squad and then justify that later.
Right, and not have to shoot at the same target.
Indeed. So I think there was a lot of cool variety. So if you wanted to house rule it and your opponents are cool with it, I think that's a pretty easy addition to just like look up that rule from the Dark Angels Codex from 4th or something and just like say, yeah, you guys can do that. And I think that brings even more life into this unit. As is, they're just let me double check. Do they have to take the full 10-man squad to get the heavy weapon? Or is that not true?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it's not. I must be thinking of a different edition. I felt like there was like a point where they had to have 10 guys and that unlocked the heavy weapons, but they could always take a special.
Not the case here, at least, yeah.
I will say one thing I've thought about, and because I was watching some battle reports from like this era or whatever over the past week, is a lot of people would take these in squads of 6.
Oh, interesting.
I was confused, and then I thought about it. And now it all makes sense, so I'm going to explain that.
Great.
Because of how 50% casualties matters so much for taking objectives, basically the whole idea is if you have 6-man squads, you can have 3 die, and your squad still is 50% or more, so it's scoring.
Yeah.
Whereas 5-man minimum squads, you take 3 deaths, they do not. So for one more body, you're getting like equivalently 1 more wound you can take before you're no longer scoring. So maybe that's one fun thing to think about if you're playing 4th edition. 6-man squads also helpfully fits in a Razorback. So it kind of makes sense too.
That's a good point
thematically.
Also. Yeah.
So it makes sense for a lot of things. I thought it was kind of cute.
Yeah, it's always fun to go back and find that. I know we've talked about like reading old forum posts for fantasy and things like that, and you read some of the strategies and meta things that came up back in the day.
I'm like, why are they all 6-man squads? And then I'm like, and it was all just for basically taking objectives. But yeah, I think without belaboring it too much, the only thing to really say is these squads have a role. Don't put differing weapons on them that conflict.
Yeah, because if you take a flamer and a missile launcher, you're rarely going to be able to use both.
Yeah,
or at least not enough to make it worth it.
Pick a role is what I'm saying.
But they do have pretty much every option you could imagine of special and heavy weapons, and they're really not that expensive. This is where I was complaining about a las cannon on a Space Marine being only 15 points versus Imperial Guard who have worse ballistic skill paying more for it.
I think I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to belabor it a little more because I think this is, if you're playing Space Marines and you need anti-tank, I think just spamming small squads attacks and just getting cheap las cannons is honestly good because it costs so much more to get a las cannon on a Devastator.
Yeah.
Like over double, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
so it's like, man, I just take attacks, and then I've got a las cannon in there. Why not? They can just stand there.
Yeah.
So what about scouts?
Scouts are super cool in the lore. They're sort of like the younger Marines who haven't become full battle brothers yet and are trying to earn their stripes, so to speak. So they're not in power armor. This is the only thing that doesn't have a 3+ save or better in the book. And so they're a 4+. I think that's true anyways.
They are a 4+, yes.
And yeah, I think I like the idea of them. I think that you have to use them well. I've taken them before in my Witch Hunters army, just as like an allies thing, because I don't have enough of anything to take it more specifically.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that. You take them with just bolters, if I recall.
I have bolt pistol. I only have models for bolt pistols in close combat.
Okay,
weapons.
that's what it is.
So they're just the standard version of it, and I only have 5 of them. So there's only 5 of them. And so I infiltrated, and they just got gunned down immediately. So I think you can't use them flippantly like that. You got to have a plan either to. If you're doing that to draw fire, great. That could be a worthwhile use for them. But they're only 2 points cheaper than a regular Space Marine. The only change is, again, that lack of save. So going from a 3+ to a 4+, and then gaining move through cover and infiltrate. Those are both obviously really helpful, and this is a really cheap way to get those. In moving through cover, I think we determined is actually you just get to roll 3 dice and take the...
It's roll 3 dice, pick the highest.
Pick the highest.
Versus 2
and pick the highest, yeah. So that's
you
helpful.
Should be moving, hopefully, statistically, minimum 5 inches.
Yeah, so I think that's really helpful for moving around, outflanking things, doing that, getting into position. But where I've seen them work the best is where you do just take a bunch of sniper rifles and a missile launcher or something like that, and then try to put them in a nest somewhere at the beginning of the game so they don't really need to be moving, which maybe infiltrate helps you do. Out of your deployment zone up on top of a tower or something, and then they can harass the enemy from there. So that could potentially work. I have had sniper scouts with a missile launcher take out my def copters before.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's fun too. I want to know, it says specifically the sergeant can get some of these weapons because a lot of times they are kind of gated from getting these. So you can give the whole squad, including the sergeant, a sniper rifle. Yeah. So you can have a full big boy sniper squad if you want. So, and yeah, I think it really, if you're doing that, throwing on the extra heavy weapon is a no-brainer because then you're heavy.
You're just sitting there anyway.
So we might as well. I think that even just a heavy bolter or, again, like the missile launcher, which is pretty affordable at 10 points, is a really good value. I actually I was thinking about this because I think this is a weird unit. I think it's really easy to focus on what they don't have and the cost difference. But I was like, what do they have? They've definitely, the biggest thing that sucks is they still are pretty expensive, and the 4-up save just hurts so much more. Going from a 3 to a 4 is like just the biggest jump
in the
game. It's not close. Just because of how AP works, because of how all this stuff works, it's humongous. And dropping feels like they should be cheaper. Now, obviously, like you said, they are gaining infiltrate and move through cover. So I'm like, okay, how do you leverage that? And one way is just go all in and park them wherever at the end of deployment and do snipers. But the other thing I thought about is kind of like what you're doing is just having a big squad of 10 and just running at somebody in combination with, deep striking Terminators, bikers.
Or infiltrating your command squad and your veterans who now are behind enemy lines, and they have to be thinking about who am I going to focus on,
right?
And maybe that then draws fire, and your scouts do make it in.
And this takes up your troop slot too, then. So like from a slot which you're required to take. So like if you're going for kind of a weird maybe infiltration spam, that sounds kind of weird. I think they have a place. Put it that way. I think they have a place. So.
Yeah, and they're cool models from this era. I love the scout models that they had at this time. Or maybe it was technically a little earlier than this, but the metal ones.
Okay.
That I have. I don't know.
Yep. I think
the
have
ones
them in
that came just
eye.
after this were a little funky.
They have a kind of a khaki like Under Armour and then the orange shoulder pads and stuff.
Yeah. Those are the ones. But yeah, moving on to transport vehicles. Several of the things we've talked about already can take these 2 dedicated transport vehicles. That's the Rhino and the up-armored Razorback. I guess not up-armored, up-armed.
Up-gunned.
Yeah, up-gunned, that's the word. And then the drop pod. But yeah, the Razorback and the Rhino are the same hull. It's just you replace some of the transport capacity with bigger guns on top.
Yep.
But they are 11, 11, 10 for their armor. And they're pretty inexpensive, 50 points for the Rhino, 70 points for the Razorback, which can have either twin-linked heavy bolter or twin-linked las cannon, which I think is a pretty cheap way to get twin-linked las cannons. Rerolling ballistic skill 4 is not bad. But yeah, what do you think?
I think 4th edition puts rhinos in a weird spot because of how entanglement works, and you can't charge coming out of them, which apparently I found this out because I guess I don't look at 3rd enough. You could just charge out of rhinos in 3rd, which is like crazy to me. So I think they're kind of at a low point for rhinos, but I still think they provide value. This isn't this book specifically, but I did a battle recently with Chaos and I had double rhinos. And I actually felt like they did pretty good. One died even top of turn 1, and I still felt like, you know what, things were okay. They got units up. I was able to live the dream where and this is just an example, but you drive up 12, you swerve to the side or whatever, unload a big squad, and then you rapid fire at somebody out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So I got to live that dream, and it felt great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
that's what you want.
Right. So like it allows you to do that. I just want to say, gotta have smoke. You gotta have
smoke. Launchers are a very cheap upgrade that are very helpful for keeping you alive long enough to get across the battlefield.
Yeah, you can't shoot when you pop smoke, but the Rhino only has a storm bolter, so the opportunity cost is not worth it. Always being glanced is always better. It guarantees that unless they wreck you, which is on a 6, so less likely, your guys will stay in. They won't have the penetrated hit, and they have to leave. You get another turn of 12-inch movement, basically, and then dropping out. So
yeah, and I think even though, like you said, the transports are a little...
I think they're a little
less
weaker.
Powerful in 4th. I think they're still important because there's no running or whatever they call advance move during the shooting phase for everybody across the board, came in 5th. So I think you kind of need transports to get your foot sloggers to the objective, get them across the board. So I think they're important to have, even though they are a little dangerous. But that's one of the things I love about 4th is the vehicles feel like what they actually are, which is completely impenetrable until suddenly they're not. Right. And I think that's great.
And it's worth noting Armor 11 front and side is basically impervious to all small arms fire. So it has to be shot at by at least something vaguely more than a average
or
rifle.
An assault cannon.
Or an assault cannon.
The Rhino also has the repair special rule because it's so very easy to fix, apparently.
Everywhere.
So the crew itself can attempt to fix it, and if they roll a 6 during the shooting phase, then they can repair an immobilized result. And I think that's cool. It's a little weird that the Razorback doesn't also have that, since it seems pretty much identical in terms of the drivetrain and the engine should be the same.
I feel like all of these vehicles, the hull is basically the same.
Right.
I don't know, whatever.
But it doesn't. So that's worth pointing out. The Razorback does not have that repair rule. I think it's also worth pointing out that the Rhino has 2 fire points. You can fire Marines being transported inside out the top hatches.
Yep.
Most of the time, if you do that, it makes your vehicle open top, but that's not true for power armored or Terminator armored. Obviously not with the Rhino, you wouldn't have a Terminator in there, but that means
they're still not open top.
Which is funny to me because it just essentially means like their armor is as strong as the vehicle, so it's not. There's no hole in the vehicle's armor.
Don't think about it too much, but I hear you.
So you could have a tac squad in there, and you could be firing the missile launcher out the top or whatever.
I don't remember the specifics about how you can move. Like, can you shoot a heavy weapon out of a Rhino after you drive?
Yeah, maybe not.
That's where I think I always forget about this.
Yeah. Now, you could still fire your plasma gun.
That's what I'm saying.
Bolter.
I definitely forget that stuff. 1,000%.
Well, I'll look it up while you start talking about the drop pod.
Okay, the drop pod. So this is 30 points, and like we talked about in the drop pod assault special rule, you can add this to any number of units. It's BS2 uniquely. I want to point that out because I think that's easy to miss.
Yeah, it's like just a machine spirit firing the gun.
Basically, it's not manned by a real Space Marine. It's automated sentry turret thing.
Yeah, but it's nice that it's so cheap because you don't need it to survive its advance across the field because it dumps the guys out as soon as it arrives, which is very nice. Compared to like a Rhino where you're like, don't die. Okay, we made it.
Yeah, once they're there, you don't even, if they shoot at it, you're almost like, you don't care. You're like, oh, great. I mean, and frankly, most of the time when people are shooting at it, it's because they have nothing else to shoot at. So it's just usually there after it drops. But really, your only choice here is, do you want to deep strike something? Sometimes the answer is yes. And you go, okay, I want this. I want to drop my dreadnought right next to that guy with a heavy flamer and boom, boom, pow, we're good.
Yeah.
and maybe you don't. So don't take it. That's really kind of the question for there. It's a dedicated transport, though, so you could theoretically have a lot of these if you really wanted to do
the full drop pod
strike
assault army.
from the sky,
that would be
brothers.
sweet. You also can take the Deathwind launcher as an option to replace the Stormbolter, which I think would be very good against something like Imperial Guard or Tyranid, kind of like maybe Orc Horde armies.
Large blast.
Yeah, it's range 12 and large blast and not ordnance. So you don't scatter. You just place the template.
But do you still shoot at AP or BS2 to like hit?
I would imagine.
Okay,
So there's
interesting.
probably a decent chance that it just misses, but
Fair enough.
but if you hit that large blast at strength 5 AP6 could kill a lot of a horde.
That would make orcs very sad.
Yeah, and it gets to shoot as soon as it arrives. So yeah, that could be pretty fun to put on. It is 20 points, so hitting on a 5 is maybe a tough sell at 20 points. But since you're 12 all around, you might survive to get a few chances at it.
Yep. It does count as open topped, worth noting. So it's a little more likely
easier
to
blow
die
up.
when it
That
does
makes
get
sense.
penned.
Yeah,
Because it's already opened.
I did just look it up, and you're right. You count as moving if you are firing from a vehicle.
That's what I thought.
So no heavy weapons unless you have some rule that allows you to do that normally. And if you move over 12, you can't shoot at all out of fire points.
Right.
Moving into fast attack, we've got a few options. It's kind of just 3, but it's because there's 3 kinds of bikes. So the first one is the Assault Squad. And this is just totally normal Marines who paid extra points to get a jump pack. But
And
not
that
that many
bolt
extra
pistol
points.
and
Only
chainsaw.
7 more points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you're right. They come default with the pistol close combat weapon rather than bolter. And they also get frag grenades for free as well. So for 7 more points, you're getting the jump packs and the frag grenades essentially as the upgrade is how you can think about it. And then these guys also can take melt-a-bombs.
The whole squad.
Yeah.
I don't think we looked at this with Blood Angels. The Blood Angel can get like a melt-a-bomb on the sergeant.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So like the fact that the whole squad can get melt-a-bombs, I think is kind of bespoke to this book. I don't know if they were like, oh, this is a little too much because they just touch a vehicle. The vehicle is dead.
Yeah.
Like, so
You're going to roll, yeah,
that's
well
2
enough on
points
one
per
of those.
guy, but
Yeah, but they can deep strike as
Yeah.
long as it's allowed in the mission. And so you could drop behind a vehicle and
Right.
potentially just slap all those
so
bombs
like,
on there.
yeah, no, it's actually kind of horrifying. Also, I want to point out they get plasma pistols so cheap. Nobody else that I know of gets plasma pistols at 5 points.
Yeah, and you can get 2 of them.
So
pretty-
for me,
pretty
that's
fun.
pretty darn takeable.
Yeah, and you can get flamers. I think
Yep.
that they're, depending on the army you're up against,
Depending on-
I think the flamer could be a better option than the plasma pistol.
Definitely.
On 2 guys, and that can be a lot of fun. They also give you the option, which I think is interesting, to drop the jump packs and go back to 15 points, which essentially just gives you free frag grenades. Because you get to keep those even if you drop that. And so I think it helps because then they still fill a little bit of a niche because they have the pistol close combat weapon. They can charge into cover and not strike last.
Sure.
So I think that it's a cool, again, alternative option that just feels a little bit different than normal Marines. And especially if you're taking them with the jump packs, they're obviously quite a bit different and can really do some cool stuff. But yeah, I think they're a great option for fast attack. And I think jump packs are good in 4th edition.
I agree.
In terms of getting across the field and assaulting quickly before people have a chance to respond.
And maybe this is just our tables, but I feel like we'll have a lot of, or maybe not a ton, but we'll have terrain where you can hide behind of. And
Yeah.
because of how jump packs move, you can just leap over this intervening terrain.
yeah.
So you can kind of play like hide and go seek with these guys. And because it's a 12-inch move, then a 6-inch charge, they have just good threat range.
That's true. So you wouldn't even necessarily need a deep strike to get to that vehicle. You can
Right.
just hop, skip, and jump around behind a vehicle
And I feel
then
like,
slap them on.
and because they're a Marine chassis, they're pretty survivable.
Yeah.
So I actually really like them, and I love that they're an example of why I like this edition, because something as kind of basic as this is kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like they're nothing. There's no like glitz or chrome to these guys. They're just Marines with a bolt pistol and a chainsaw and a jump pack.
Yeah.
And then maybe some options. But they're kind of like, oh crap, I don't want to get charged by 10 assault Marines. Like that's
No,
like
they'd cut through you.
that's kind of horrifying, man. But I feel like in like later editions, it's like, what? That's not the Vanguard veteran guy with the extra triple double mash gravy attack. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's just assault Marines. But they're genuinely, I think, frightening here. So
Yeah. The only thing I wish they had was if they dropped the jump packs, I wish they could take a Rhino
Yes.
as a dedicated transport would be fun, but maybe that makes Khorne Berserkers less special or something. I don't know.
Maybe there's probably, I think there's chapter traits that let you kind of do effectively that.
Oh, because
where you can get tacticals
extra
with a bolt pistol and
that's
chain
right.
sword.
So that would be maybe.
So there's a way to kind of do that via chapter traits.
Next up, we have the Land Speeder Squadron. I love these models. They're so cool, but 50 points for a 10 all-around skimmer. I don't know. I feel like they might just die too fast.
They're not open-topped.
They're not. Why is there all these things that have no tops that are not open-topped?
I feel like they look objectively open-topped.
Just like the Elder Warwalkers.
Are they not?
Like, the Elder Warwalkers are not.
Am I missing it?
No, it would say it right there under type.
They're just not open.
You're right about that. Well, it's probably because they're power armor.
Yeah,
the guys are power armored, so it doesn't matter.
His armor is thicker than the land speeders.
Yeah, apparently.
But
yeah, I think they're really cool. I think that they have the same problem as potentially like a Sentinel or a Defcopta, where if you're taking them in units, they can just get wiped out by heavy, like concentrated fire. But if you have the slots available, I think taking them separately could be cool. But I think there's a lot of competition here with the assault squads and the bike squads, to where I think it just gets a little harder to justify what they bring to the table. But they have a couple cool options. You want to tell us about those?
Yeah. So I guess to explain their loadout initially, they're just 50 points and they're a fast skimmer and they have a heavy bolter. But in addition to that, you can switch out the heavy bolter for a multi-melta for 15 points. That's exciting because they come with deep strike natively. So you can just have a 65-point model drop out of the sky, blow up a tank maybe, and pay for itself. So that's kind of a compelling option.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you can kind of add extra weapons to them for additional points. So in addition to the multi-melta / heavy bolter core armament, you could make one into a land speeder tornado. When you do that, you pay 30 extra points, and if it has a heavy bolter, that makes it also have an assault cannon for 30 points. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
If it has a multi-melta, this is less good, I think. You can give it a heavy flamer also. So that just kind of...
Yeah, they're both close-range weapons, but you wouldn't want to shoot them at the same target typically.
Yeah, so I mean, that's okay. But the tornado variant with the heavy bolter and assault cannon, now we're talking 7 shots.
Yeah.
And 4 of them are ending. Okay, I'm excited about that. 80 points is a lot, but... you can move around with a fast skimmer, though.
Yeah. Yeah, being a fast skimmer is nice because you can scoot around pretty quick that way.
And then the Typhoon is the other option, and that's basically, in addition to your heavy bolter / multi-melta, you can have a missile launcher rack kind of mounted on for 20 points, and they have 48-inch range, strength 5, AP 5, heavy 1 blast, and crucially, twin-linked. And again, they're BS4, so quite accurate blast weapon. AP 5 means that a lot of infantry are still going to get a save, but against like stuff like orcs or whatever, this is
and they'll be taking a lot of them because it's strength 5 blast.
Right. So I think they're okay. Like they're not. I don't look at them and go, wow, I would never take it. I think again, you got to think, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I could see having, triple tornadoes with the assault cannon build and just zooming around, like just being like they're just a mobile anti-infantry like bullet send out thing, like 3 heavy bolters, 3 assault cannons, just zooming around. That's kind of
would be
cute.
a lot of DACA.
That would be. Or I like the one-off multi-melta deep strike guy.
Yeah.
I think that's good too. Or just the Typhoon. I think they have options that are cool.
Yeah, and the models again are just awesome.
They are neat.
So really like those. And then we have the bikes. You can take regular bikes, you can take attack bikes, and you can take scout bikes. And those could all be their own squad. But if you take a normal bike squad, you also could add an attack bike to that squad.
Yep.
But they all operate pretty similarly. They're bikes. You're getting that bonus toughness from 4 to 5, which is pretty great on Marines. And especially because they've got 3-up saves. Obviously, the scouts are only 4-up.
4.
Yeah. And they have a minimum squad size of 3 up to 5, except for the attack bikes. If you do a squad of them, it's just 2 or 3 attack bikes.
Sure.
But yeah,
I like they're very
cool.
different than the Chaos bikes, where Chaos bikes have 2 attacks natively. These guys only have 1. So I feel like when you're looking at them, you're like, okay, I want to run them shooty, and then my thought process goes to, okay, Am I putting an attack squad bike in there with a multi-melta, because that's one of the options, and then I can put melta bombs on the rest of the squad. So then I'm zooming up,
turbo boost around
boosting
behind a vehicle.
and if they shoot at you with their big gun, you don't care because you got 3-up invuln, right? Maybe some of your guys die, but most of them won't, and then you charge them.
Yeah, you only need a couple to get in with the
Right.
melta bombs.
Yeah, so you can go pretty anti-tank with these guys. The scouts are kind of cool because they have the scouts rule, unlike normal scouts.
Yeah, which is funny.
So, and because they're bikes, their scout move is 12 inches. So they
I
can
didn't
do.
even think about that.
So they
Yeah.
do uniquely have the ability, and I just want to point this out. They can also take melta bombs, so you can scout move 12 inches,
Be halfway to the
move
enemy.
12 inches, and then charge 6 inches. Turn 1 theoretically for a grand threat total of 30 inches on turn 1.
So yeah, that is potential alpha strike distance on turn
Non-linearly.
one.
So
Yeah.
if somebody sets up a tank and you see the opportunity and you think you could put them behind a
Wow,
thing,
yeah.
you could turn 1, charge a vehicle, and melta bomb it.
Yeah,
So I think that alone gives the scout bikers value.
that's brilliant. Nice. I
That's
like
all
it.
I got.
I will also just say that the attack bikes are awesome because they have sidecars.
They
I
do.
know one guy
They
in
are
our group
cool.
thinks they're the dumbest thing in the world, but I'm
I
just
like
a sucker for a sidecar. So
It's just, I think it's because it makes the guy in the sidecar, and the Marines are so like macho
Yeah.
or whatever. It's like he's just a little dude.
yeah,
But it's fun.
That's funny. One of my dreams is to own a Vespa with a sidecar. So if
Oh,
you want to
okay.
donate to Cam's Vespa with a sidecar fund, feel free to reach
Yeah.
out in the comments.
Reach
I'll
out
let
in
you
the
know how you
comments.
can give me money. But yeah, the bonus of the attack bike is you get an extra attack because there's an extra dude in it, but then they get the heavy bolter is what's in the sidecar there, and you can upgrade that with a multi-melta.
Yep.
So I think that could be fun. I think that's a fun option for what you're describing with the regular bike squad of being anti-tank. Put in that one attack bike with the multi-melta, take all those melta bombs. That could be fun.
Yeah, no, I think they're all actually decent. I think bikes are good in fourth intrinsically. I think the core rules for how bikes work are good, especially in comparison to a lot of other unit types.
Yeah.
So you could do a lot worse. Just being tough 5 against a lot of stuff means you just ignore so much small arms fire.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're nearing the end here. We've got heavy support, and there's 5 different. Well, no, even more because the Land Raiders.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, we
This
can
is the
move.
This is the biggest section actually. For the
We'll
Space
move
Marines.
swiftly. Devastators are basically Marines with heavy weapon options. However, because you can have 4 in the squad, they're taxed.
Right, since you can focus fire
Yep.
all at the same target with all of your las cannons, etc.
So that ends up being, I'll just go over it really quick, 15 points per heavy bolter, 20 points for a missile launcher or multi-melta, and a plasma cannon or las cannon at 35.
Yeah.
So you can have
Which
a squad.
actually is a discount on the plasma cannon and costs more for the las cannon, which is interesting. But
Oh, yeah. Interesting. That is interesting. But honestly, I don't hate the plasma cannon option. 4 plasma cannons is pretty terrifying. But
yeah,
but then again, you really, when you do go down to strength 7, vehicles like that, I feel that drop from 8 to
Yeah.
7. I don't know. But I think they're fine.
but against Tyranids, they don't have vehicles.
That's true. And I like having an anchor unit, and these can be your anchor unit. Sometimes it's good just to have one unit that can put out a lot of high strength shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a guy who brings a lot of missile launchers in his dev squads, which is interesting because I think that's not necessarily the first thing you'd think of, but it's worked well, especially against like my orcs, because he can use the crack missiles against vehicles, but also the frag missiles against my big mobs. So I think they're a very versatile option and definitely helpful, but I think they require thoughtful deployment because since they're heavy weapons, you kind of got to get them in the spot they're going to be.
Yeah.
So like you've said before, with other similar options, you want to think about fire lines. Where am I going to be able to see the most or create an area of denial, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Would you tend to deploy them early to try to create that area of denial or deploy them late so that you can set them up across from the thing you want to blow up?
So a lot of that will depend on the scenario, because I know
That's
fourth makes you deploy in certain orders depending on the thing. So oftentimes what I've seen, heavy support has to deploy to early, which is
That's
bad.
true. Yeah.
But if I was given wherewithal to choose, I think it really depends on my overall strategy and if there's an obvious place for them. So
Yeah,
if there
that makes
is an
sense.
obvious area of terrain with a very good sight line, I'm probably plopping them there unless there's an obvious weakness. But it's really going to vary for me. I guess what I would say is It just depends. Depends on matchups. Depends on their loadout. But generally speaking, they'll rank high for me and where like who gets the good spot. Like they're getting the good spot before
it makes
pretty
sense.
much anything else. So.
The next 4 options are all variations on the theme of the Predator. They just have different weapon loadouts. The Predator, Destructor, and Annihilator are obviously the most similar since they have turrets with just different weapons and sponsons, but they're all the same hull like we've been talking about. The first one is the Vindicator, which is a lesser armored Imperial Guard demolisher, essentially. And it's also worth pointing out that the cannon is hull mounted, so you have a much more limited angle of fire. And so it matters where you're aiming your gun when you end your movement phase.
Yep.
And
Can't just
obviously
spin
you can
the turret.
Yeah, and you can spin it as much as you want in the movement phase, but then that's the way you're facing going into the shooting phase. I've never actually seen one of these on the battlefield, but they have a shorter range than a lot of big tank guns at only 24 inches. But like we talked about with the Imperial Guard, it's a powerful weapon. So I think could be good for bunker busting. There's some cool bunker assault missions later on in the book this could be fun to use for. But yeah, what do you think about it just in a normal game?
I love it. I wish Chaos could take it outside of Iron Warriors. But one obvious upgrade, maybe not obvious, one upgrade that I think is maybe not obvious that's very good is the Machine Spirit one that allows you to shoot a gun even if you're stunned or shaken.
Yeah, and ballistic skill too, but at least you're still shooting.
But because it's an ordnance gun, you didn't care anyway.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
So
Great
it's
point.
like just winning, like throw the Machine Spirit on these guys. You just want the AI just shooting the demolisher gun. There's like no reason unless you're starved for points. I forget the cost of it, but I feel like the value here is huge for that. So I really like it. I love a big fat pie plate, and strength 10 is just AP2. I mean, it's hard for me to say no to. And 13 in the front is high.
Yeah.
So
it is only 11 on the side, which I think
true.
is a little tough because you definitely got to make sure you're protecting your flanks there, which is hard to do in this edition.
And because of, like you said, there's no turret, so you got to, especially if you need to drive onto an objective for some reason, you're really going to be exposing yourself. I wouldn't expect it to live a lot of missions. It might do a lot of damage, but it's probably going to get knocked out.
Yeah. I think it also just has a cool silhouette compared to a lot of other tanks because its big gun is hull mounted and not on the top.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like self-propelled artillery from World War II that it's obviously modeled after. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so next up we've got the Predator Annihilator and Predator Destructor. The difference there is the Annihilator has twin-linked las cannon and the Predator has a just auto cannon, not twin-linked. But yeah, they're both same armor profile, 13, 11, 10, ballistic skill 4, and they can take sponsons. So you can get heavy bolters, las cannons if you want on the side there, but it's nice you don't have to take them if you want something cheaper. I think if I'm taking the Predator Annihilator, it feels like why not just load up on las cannons and just be able to shoot everything. But I guess it makes
the only thing I don't like about that
one basket
is because you can't move and shoot all of them then. So if you
I
want to
forget
shoot
about that
all
every
of them,
time.
you
Yeah,
have to just
that's true.
stand still.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the full Annihilator build, which I've seen played, and I think we played it wrong previously, which is probably why we're misremembering. But going forward, we've been playing it right. You basically want to park it somewhere, hopefully turn 2 at the latest, and you're just going to shoot las cannons all game. So again, it's going to be kind of like a weird dev squad, but a tank. So
yeah, a little more mobile, but still you don't want to be moving it.
I will say, though, I don't hate a Predator Annihilator with 2 heavy bolters. It sounds weird, but
heavy bolters are strong enough that against some armored targets, it could still be doing something.
And you're still getting 7 shots total.
Yeah.
You're not losing many shots over the autocannon. You're losing 1 shot, and that 1 shot is twin-linked, and it's better strength than AP.
True.
So it does this version does cost more points, worth noting. But if you're uncertain, and then you can still move 6 and shoot everything too. So there's a lot of benefits. I don't hate the twin-link las cannon with double heavy bolters, but
that's a good point.
Can see value for all las cannon, of course, because 3 las cannons is 3 las cannons. Destructor, I would never take the las cannon sponsons with this. because you can't do the move and shoot. It just non-bows with itself because of how the rules of the game work, unfortunately.
Right. And that's main versus defensive weaponry
Yeah.
is the thing. If you move, you can only fire one main weapon.
And that's determined by strength, not like, is it a sponson?
Right.
So like in that weird scenario, like it just, you really gimp yourself effectively.
That does feel kind of weird, but yeah. And then we've got the Whirlwind, which is the artillery tank.
Yep.
It's got
missile artillery.
Yeah. So a whole bunch of multi-missile launcher. Is that what they call it in Battletech? Multiple missile launcher.
There are multiple missile launchers and medium missile launcher. There's a lot of different things in Battletech, but yeah, this
is the thing where you get all the little red tips sticking out of the missile launcher.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's two different ways that you can shoot it: Vengeance or Castellan. And I think you can always just fire either, right? It comes pre-equipped with both.
It just says you must decide before the game begins which one it is equipped
I missed
with.
that. All right.
So you have to
I see that there now. You can't switch during the game. Yeah, so it's one of them is very interesting. One is normal, what you'd think of. It's Ordnance Barrage, Large Blast, and Strength 5, AP 4. It does have a minimum range, which is interesting, so you have to stay at least 12 inches away.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad. Especially with this kind of thing, you don't even need to see the target, so you can be shooting guess range. This always confuses me in fourth. They put G for guess range, but you're not actually guessing. I reread the rule today, and it says the crew of the weapon guesses how far the enemy is, but you don't. The player doesn't have to guess.
Yeah, when we did this guess range weapon, I think it was an Eldar gun. We did it more like what you just described because it's called guess range, so it must be like fantasy,
it actually
right?
isn't called that anywhere in the rules,
They just
except
put a
for in
G.
that little bit of like snippet of narrative-y stuff. But they do put a G, which they never define, which is funny.
I hate it too.
So I wonder if in an earlier edition you actually did, and it's a holdover. But anyway, so you don't have to actually guess. You just put it. Just means you're going to scatter D6 if you can see the target, 2D6 if you can't see it. But yeah, that first one, the Vengeance type, is just like a normal missile launcher kind of thing.
Yep.
But the second one drops a minefield. So you actually can't target an enemy unit. You have to target a spot on the battlefield that is not where there is an enemy unit. And if it hits, then or wherever it lands, because it will hit, because it just scatters, it just drops a minefield. So we did have a player take this one time against me.
Oh, really? I didn't see that game.
Yeah.
Was it good?
It worked. It should have worked a little better than it did.
Okay.
He dropped it right in front of my orcs. We were playing the rescue mission where you're trying to go look at all the different objective markers and figure out which is the one, and then pick it up and run away with it. And so he dropped it right in front of. I had a truck and a big mob of orcs. So I think the truck had my war boss and my knobs in it. And so now there's this giant minefield directly in front of us, which is the size of the large blast template. And I didn't have enough turns left to go around it, so I just had to run through it. And I think it did blow up my truck, but I think it careened forward, and so I think it ended up helping my war boss get a little bit closer, if I recall correctly. And I did lose some orcs, but not enough to like kill it. So essentially what it does is when you move through it, you have to roll dice, and on a 4+, a model, so per model that's moving through it, they take a strength 6 AP nil hit, and vehicles get hit on their rear armor. So obviously very good against my truck. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's 10 all around.
Yeah.
It's ramshackle
Well,
as well.
strength 6, you're scared. Put it that way.
Against
armor 10.
Armor 10. So yeah, I think it's a really helpful area denial kind of thing, and you can halt or redirect the enemy's advance with it. Because if you're thinking about like, okay, I have this squad of 20 boys, and I have to roll for all of them walking across it, and so half of them might just die here with a strength 6 hit. That's pretty terrifying. I guess you'd save a few of the saves theoretically since it has no AP. But that could be, I think, could really make somebody think twice about moving one way or the other or not advancing where they were going to. It can keep people away from an objective. But it is a little bit of a tough sell to spend 85 points on something that's just doing that and not directly attacking people.
That's
so it's
my
super
thing.
Cool, but
I feel like this is so matchup dependent.
Yeah.
And I guess how do you interpret when do you decide? Do you decide while you're writing the army list?
it just says before the game.
It just says, so could you just show up saying, I have a whirlwind, see that there's an orc player with a big green mob, and go, okay, I definitely want the minefields.
That's how I would read it, is you're loading the missiles as you approach the battlefield.
But I just didn't know if you would be like, okay, I'm going to do that, but then, I'm playing against the shooty guard list that's not going to move towards me at all, and I'm going to have to go to them, and I'd much rather have basically a large blast heavy bolter every round. So
But yeah, I think it's a really cool vehicle. I think not a lot of armies have a very similar thing. So I think it's awesome. I like artillery.
And because it's ordnance, it's actually very good against certain cover things because of how cover works.
Oh, that's true. It's from the point of impact, whether they get cover or not.
So if they're in buildings and stuff, if you get a direct hit in like the building, they won't get cover. And it's AP4, so against a lot of stuff, they'll just die. So I think that's cool and makes it kind of cute in like city fight stuff.
Definitely. And finally, the big boys themselves. We've got the Land Raider and the Land Raider Crusader. These are the most heavily armored thing in the game, except maybe the Necron Monolith. I don't know what that is.
The Monolith is also 14 all around, but it's got other stuff.
But yeah, so 14 all around, but it's 250 points for the basic version, 265 for the Crusader version. So you're definitely paying for it. It doesn't have more transport capacity than a Rhino, which is interesting. The difference being it can carry Terminators, which a Rhino can't.
Yes.
So you can have 5 Terminators in there, and then like you pointed out to me, as I just learned, the Crusader can have a few more. So you can get 8 Terminators or 15 Marines. So that's kind of cool. That can still only be 1 unit, though. So I guess it's like, would you ever have 15 Space Marines?
I'm trying to think. I'll be honest. I was racking my brain because I'm like, if you take the HQ and then you stack the 3 in there,
and then you could add a Tech Marine could go join the squad.
Oh, a Tech Marine and a Servitor. I guess I
don't think the Servitor could join. I think he can only join if he doesn't
14?
have the Servitors. But
I was racking my brain how to get 15 too, but maybe there's a way and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, if you know how, let us know in the comments. I'd love to know.
But
I love that it says what the crew is. That's like a thing that has no mechanical meaning, but Marines. All the codexes tell you what the crew of the vehicle is.
It's flavor, man.
I guess the Tau have a thing their battle suits can take where you can eject, and then you're supposed to put a pilot model and he actually continues playing. Yeah. I love that. But yeah, so Land Raiders, in addition to being incredibly well armored, like we already pointed out, have the assault ramps, and so you can charge out of them, which is super handy.
That is very unique to Land Raiders.
To be able to be so heavily armored, not open topped, and still charge out of them, because that's the downfall of the Orcs is they can charge out of their vehicles if they're open top, but that means they might blow up on the way in.
Right.
And then they've got a lot of weaponry. So you've got your by default. Twin-linked las cannons on both sponsons, and then you've got twin-linked heavy bolter in the hull.
Yep.
But I mean, that's still the same problem you've pointed out earlier. You've got to stand still if you're shooting both the las cannons.
That's my whole problem with the base Land Raider, and same with the Chaos Land Raider. I probably didn't go into it enough during the Chaos review, but it's like if you want to be driving forward to deliver the meat inside or whatever, you can't be shooting the guns. And if you want to shoot the guns, then you're not delivering the meat. So it's kind of like this weird vehicle where you're like, I guess, are you moving up like 6 inches a turn, shooting like a las cannon in the heavy bolter? So it feels like it's at war with itself.
But luckily, for 15 more points, you can get the Crusader version, which is much more built for shooting as it drives up.
Yes.
So it pairs well with its increased capacity.
It's worth noting they both do have that machine spirit stuff too, so they can always shoot something at a BS2.
That's true. Yeah,
so they're never completely. And Chaos has the same thing. It's called like Infernal Device or something.
Yeah.
But the Crusader version, for me, for what the intended role of a delivery vehicle is, this is just superior in pretty much every way.
I mean, it has a hull-mounted twin-linked assault cannon, so that alone
is pretty.
I hate it. I already hate it. And a hull-mounted multi-melta.
I know.
And a pair of sponson-mounted hurricane bolters, which I then looked at the ranged weapons. What is a hurricane bolter? It's not on here, but that's because I just needed to read one more sentence. It's what?
It's triple twin-linked bolters. So,
on both sides.
On both sides. So it's
6
if you get within 12, it can shoot, that would be 12 shots twin-linked from bolters, then 4 shots twin-linked from the assault cannon, and then the multi-melta. So you can put out a lot of dice.
Yeah.
And it has frag assault launchers, so the guys inside count as having frag grenades when they charge.
You drive right up to it in placed position, blast the doors off, shoot the frag grenades, charge in there.
It also comes with extra armor. You could buy that for the other one, but it just has it.
You get so much for 15 points.
It's basically...
It seems like a no-brainer.
It's pretty much, in my opinion, almost strictly better. Where it's not is that theoretically late game, and maybe depending on your matchups, I could see this being the case. Maybe you have the Land Raider squad and you don't want to actually run towards the enemy. Maybe there's a situation. In that case, now you have the Land Raider turns into a main battle tank the normal one.
That's true, yeah.
And it just sits there with it's basically 2 Predator Annihilators, kind of.
Yeah.
And a heavy bolter, so it can late game maybe do more general anti-tank shooting.
But you don't need that because you got a las cannon in every one of your tac squads.
That's the thing. So I feel like most of the time for a delivery vehicle, I would much rather have the Crusader. It's so much more efficient, and the weapon loadout makes sense.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
And with that, we have reached the end of the army list. So, I think neither of us own a Space Marine army, but we have 2 players doing Space Marines in our campaign right now. I guess I technically have a Space Marine army. It's just, I don't know how many points it is.
A small one.
Yeah, it's probably like 750 or 1,000.
This is an army that I think everybody wants to have. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I think a lot of people think about it. I know I kind of think about it sometimes.
They look cool. They
just
look
cool,
great
man.
on the table. You get to be bold with your color scheme, which is fun.
They just look great.
Yeah. I think, interestingly, they're not necessarily the easiest army to paint as a beginner, because I think some of those really bright colors can be difficult to paint. Obviously, a little easier now with speed paints. Like speed paint yellow goes on beautifully.
Imperial fists are a lot easier than they used to be, probably.
But all those big smooth surfaces I think can be a little tough, like getting a nice smooth coat that's not splotchy if you're using speed paint or something on the shoulder pads and things like that can be a little tough. But dry brushing will go a long way. I think I've shared this tip before, but if you're
watering it down,
not even that of what this, I don't remember where I picked this up, but if you wipe off your brush for the dry brushing on a non-porous surface, it won't dry out the brush too much, and then you'll just get a smoother application. Yes, that's the word, of your dry brushing. So you can use plastic. I usually use my hand, which is probably not great in the long run, but
yeah, we have discussed that. I've told you about my fingernails coming out looking multicolored sometimes because I just go on my thumb. But okay.
So we're gonna roll in and just tag at the end here this chapter traits
just
bit.
Real quick.
This is again one of the things that we've said many times we love about this era of 40K fantasy is just all of the customization that's available, and the fact that they've built into the book the ability to make a custom chapter that has some advantages and drawbacks, which I always appreciate that there's both of those involved. And it is a little bit of a complex system. They have these 8 different traits that you can choose: pious, zealous, dutiful, wise, courageous, somber, stern, or fierce. And then within each of those, there are 3 different advantages you could choose to take. Which ones or how many you can take depends on whether you have minor divergence from the Codex, notable divergence from the Codex, or a significant divergence from the Codex Astartes. If you're just minor, you only get 1 advantage from any one of those traits, and then you have to take a minor drawback. If you have a notable divergence, you get 2 advantages, but they have to be from the same trait. So you couldn't have a wise and a courageous one. It'd have to be 2 courageous ones or whatever. But then you have to take a major drawback. And then if you have a significant diversion, you get to pick 2 different advantages from 2 different traits.
Right.
And then you get a major drawback and a minor drawback. So there's a little bit to think about there. It's not as straightforward maybe as some of the other customization options we've talked about in other codexes, and you want to read through everything and kind of think about it. I think the hard thing for me can always be choosing the drawbacks. I know this is what has stopped me from ever really settling on my custom nightly orders for my Empire in 6th edition. That was like some White Dwarf thing that they released, is because I could never really decide like which negative do I want. But these ones don't feel that hard to choose. I think we talked about them a little bit, and I think that it can be, depending on what you're doing, some of them would wreck your plan and make it really hard to build an army. But in general, it feels like if you just assess your collection and think about what models do I have, or how am I building my army, how do I want it, likely one of these drawbacks will probably be okay, and you'll be able to take it without messing up your plan too much. But in general, they're just limiting a lot of your selections. So, for example, Aspire to Glory means you can only take a 0-1 selection of Dreadnoughts and Terminators. So
just
if you're like,
fewer elites.
Oh, that's fine. Like, I was more interested in like doing a fast attack heavy list or something. I don't really care about that. Cool. So things like that. But I think that helps because it creates a more distinctive force where you are limiting yourselves in some ways in order to gain some bonuses in others. And I think that's just cool to be able to customize that yourself. Of course, they have the chapters of legend listed here, so you can see if you wanted to play specifically as Imperial Fists, then you would see that they are pious and have suffer not the works of heretics, with the drawback death before dishonor. And so there you go. You can play the Imperial Fists, have those, and now you're a little bit more distinct from the regular Ultramarines version that is the Codex as written. There is a funny minor drawback. We stand alone means you may not use any allies, but that seems like such a rare thing. Maybe in 4th edition people were using allies all the time, but
there is a matrix for it, and stuff like the Demon Hunters and Witch Hunters have a lot about that, but we don't see it a ton, but it does exist.
So I think if somebody was doing this in our group, we'd probably say you can't take that as your minor drawback because nobody was going to do allies anyways. That'd be a little bit of a cheat code, but
that one is a little kind of free. I don't know what the thought behind that was.
But yeah, let's talk about any of the advantages stand out to you as like, oh, that'd be really cool, make a distinctive force that you'd be interested in.
I think I talked about it a little bit. I think Scions of Mars is cool. Lets you take that Tech Marine as an HQ and stuff. I just think that's unique and adds a different thing. Another one that I think I talked about, I think is it Take the Fight to Them? Yeah, that one lets you put bolt pistol and chain swords on tac squads for no extra cost.
Yeah.
So that just lets you potentially do a very different sort of list where your basic troops are now just melee guys, and now you can do like a Rhino Rush with a kind of a different flavor. I don't know how good that is, but at least it's kind of cool and provides that option.
Yeah, the fact that now you can have a much more melee focused across the board kind of army. I like Cleanse and Purify because you can double down on plasma or melta-guns, since you can replace your missile launcher or las cannon.
What I wonder about that, do you pay for the missile launcher and then swap it out?
I guess it does read that way, yeah.
That's
so
how
I guess there's a bit of a
wondered.
premium cost there then.
But any others that stood out to you? I guess. Sorry. Because I trust the wisdom of the ancients.
I like so there's Never Despair, and there is
Death Before Dishonor. That one.
Yeah. So these are two kind of like opposites, two sides of the same coin. One is a drawback, one is an advantage. Never Despair means that the Space Marines can try to force an extra turn to be played if they haven't quite achieved their objective yet. And so then you roll a 4+ on what would be the last turn, and on obviously a 4+, you play another turn. The drawback version is the opposite of that, which we talked a little bit about narratively, how they describe this as the last stand that Space Marines will try to make that isn't always necessary kind of thing. But your opponent then can force an extra turn. So if you were like about to win, they can say, no, we're going to play one more turn, and maybe you don't hold on to the
kind
objective
of a major
for that
drawback,
last turn.
Potentially.
Yeah. So I think those are cool because it affects the game pretty fundamentally, but I guess sometimes that could be annoying because it's like, well, we only have 2 hours tonight to play the game, and if we play an extra turn, this is going to take a lot longer potentially, so I don't know.
It is
cool
unique.
Narratively, but maybe not always the best in
real
practice.
terms.
Purity Above All is cool because you can put apothecaries in your regular tactical and veteran squads.
That is cool. I like that.
And so just, again, ignoring those failed armor saves
I do like that.
with a 3+ is pretty tasty.
Also, apothecaries get no respect. I feel like you barely see apothecaries. There should be medics all over the place.
Yeah, medics are great.
Yeah.
I was just playing Command and Conquer Tiberian Sun the other night, and you get medics, and it's like, this is the best. An
This is the
RTS
best.
where I can heal my
I can
dudes.
heal
I
things.
love this.
I want to heal all my Marines. I don't want any of them to die.
Yes. But yeah. So overall, I think there's enough options in here that really have the opportunity to create a flavorful version of this without fundamentally breaking or changing how the army list works. But we'll give you the opportunity just to dial something in a little bit more specific for your custom chapter. So we'd love to hear in the comments if you've built a custom chapter, what did you choose for your advantages and drawbacks? And of course, like we mentioned in the last episode, what are your company colors or chapter colors, etc.? Have you written up any lore for them? I still haven't settled on a name for my custom chapter. I had a whole list of things, trying to play off the orange color of them and whatnot. I don't think I ever landed on one, but
I'd end up being a lame-o, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I have it in me to make a cool custom name chapter. I would just delve into the bowels of some online repository for unheard of that are chapters, but they exist or whatever in lore. It's just you never see them.
Here are the ideas. I have too many. I'm going to read them all though. The Ardent Blaze. Oh, I guess I listed it. They could be the Brethren of the Ardent Blaze.
Okay.
Wardens of the Ardent Flame. The Ember Knights.
Ooh.
The Blazing Shroud. which I guess Fists of the Blazing Shroud, Guardians of the Blazing Shroud, Void Flame, Ember Claws, the Sons of Fulvus. I'm sure that was some Welsh or Finnish word that means fire or something like that. Oh, here we go. The Sons of Varanus, which is Varanus is the Latin for monitor lizard. So it's sort of like the Sons of the Dragon or something.
That's kind of cool.
Maybe I'll go with that one. Sons of Varanus. I like that.
It sounds like a planet name too.
Also true. It can be both.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
He's
from
one of the lost Primarchs.
Varanus or whatever, and it's like maybe that was like the dominant predator, some
that
lizard.
Could be giant monitor lizards.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Storm Lords. Look at these guys. Can you imagine painting that? Just pick all the hardest colors to paint.
White and red and
it's
yellow.
It's white, red, and yellow.
They're the McDonald's ones.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That kind of ruins it, doesn't it?
I do love the heraldic color kind of approach where these guys are like halved. You can do like quarters and things like that. You can do all sorts of fun colors. But yeah, anything else you want to say about Codex Space Marines?
No, I think it's fantastic and makes me excited to play Space Marines in 4th edition. And in other editions or whatever, it just gets me excited about the army. So I think the Codex succeeds.
Yeah, that's what you want in a Codex. They've got pretty pictures. They've got cool art. They've got usable rules. I don't think we talked about any unit that we're like, yeah, that's a dud. Would never. Maybe the Tech Marine a little bit.
Maybe the Tech Marine, and even then, I think he's okay.
Yeah.
If you go in knowing what he needs to do, don't just like throw him in randomly.
Yeah,
you need to have some thought.
And I think the army's very forgiving for beginners. It does make a lot of sense as an intro army. We've talked about this before with like fantasy, where it's like the Empire is not an easy army, so putting that in the starter set was maybe not the best idea, whereas Space Marines being in the starter set makes sense because they're pretty elite, so you don't have to have as many models to paint necessarily to get started. They're pretty good in the game, so that helps. Obviously, having your guys not die because you're rolling 3-up saves is nice, so I think it's helpful to ease people into the game. But like you pointed out, there's several clever little things you can figure out with the army list of how you pair things or how you use different units, so I think there's depth here as well for the veteran player as well. So a lot to be offered by Codex Space Marines. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there then. Thanks for listening, and share your thoughts in the comments. Like we said, we're also coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
I think that might be
the next episode.
The next episode.
All right.
So if you're here, hopefully we haven't decided as of recording of what that looks like. So if we haven't decided yet, and you got to this part of the review, leave a comment. Let us know what you think would be interesting, or if you have any questions. Or
right now we're kind of thinking maybe we'll do like a Q&A. So hopefully by this point we will have posted
some kind of
way
Q&A.
to have you submit questions. But really, I guess you could do rules questions of our interpretation of things in 6th edition fantasy or 4th ed 40K, and we can give our thoughts on that or try to hunt down FAQs or whatever.
Just our opinions on anything.
Yeah.
You want to know the hot
opinions.
takes?
Yeah.
I can give random hot takes on any unit you can imagine.
Yeah,
probably.
or any game, wargaming thing, even if we shouldn't have an opinion and it's completely uneducated, we'll give you our opinion.
I will give you my uneducated opinion, yes.
Cool. All right, well, that's all for now. This has been Refused Flank.
Bye.
Bye.